When Clara Hayes collapsed at her desk, clutching a positive pregnancy test she'd tried to hide, she didn't know the billionaire CEO standing over her hospital bed would change everything, or that telling him the truth 6 months later would either destroy her or save them both. This is a story about a woman who worked herself half to death for love, a single father who'd locked his heart away in grief, and the moment one secret confession turned their carefully controlled worlds completely upside down. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The fluorescent lights in the 14th floor accounting department of Mercer Global Holdings buzzed with the kind of persistent hum that burrowed into your skull after 8 hours. Clara Hayes had stopped noticing it years ago. She'd stopped noticing a lot of things: the ache in her lower back, the way her vision blurred when she stood too quickly, the hollow gnawing in her stomach that coffee couldn't fill anymore. She was 30 years old and looked 40 on good days. Her fingers moved across the keyboard with mechanical precision, reconciling expense reports that represented more money in a single line item than she'd earned in 5 years. The numbers swam sometimes. She'd blink hard, refocus, keep going. Column C had to match column F, always. Mr. Peterson from senior management didn't accept errors, and Clara couldn't afford to give him reasons. She couldn't afford anything, really. Her phone buzzed against the desk. A text from Riverside Medical Center lit up the screen. Reminder: Emma Hayes, dialysis appointment 6 p.m. today. Please confirm. Clara's chest tightened. She glanced at the clock. 4:47 p.m. If she left now, if she actually left on time for once, she could make it across town, sit with Emma through the treatment, maybe grab something from the vending machine that could pass for dinner. Her sister hated going alone. The needles scared her, even after 2 years of this routine. But the Peterson report wasn't finished. Clara typed back, "Confirmed. I'll be there." Then she opened another spreadsheet and kept working. The office had mostly emptied out. Janet, from 2 cubicles over, had packed up at 4:30 sharp like she did every day, talking loudly about her daughter's soccer practice. Marcus, the new guy, had followed at 4:45, whistling on his way to the elevator. Clara had perfected the art of looking busy so no one would stop to chat, so no one would ask why she stayed late every single night. She didn't stay because she loved the work. She stayed because every extra hour meant overtime pay, and overtime pay meant Emma's prescriptions got filled on time. The nausea hit without warning. Clara's hand flew to her mouth. She pushed back from her desk fast enough that her chair rolled and hit the cubicle divider behind her. She stood, wobbled, grabbed the edge of the desk. "Just tired," she whispered to no one, but her body disagreed. The room tilted sideways. The fluorescent lights above stretched into long white streaks. She heard her own breathing, too fast, too shallow, and somewhere very far away a phone was ringing and ringing and ringing. Clara's knees gave out. She didn't feel herself hit the floor. There was just the buzzing lights, then nothing. Marcus Chen had come back for his forgotten phone charger. He was halfway to his desk when he heard the sound. Not a scream, just a heavy, wrong kind of thud that made his stomach drop. "Hello?" He moved faster. "Someone still here?" He found her crumpled between her desk and chair, one arm twisted underneath her body, her face pressed against the industrial carpet. Her purse had fallen and spilled across the floor. Wallet, keys, receipts, a small white stick with 2 pink lines. Marcus's eyes went wide. He grabbed his phone. "I need an ambulance at Mercer Global Holdings, 14th floor. Woman collapsed. She's breathing but unconscious. Just send someone now." He knelt beside Clara, carefully turned her onto her side like he'd learned in some long ago CPR class. Her pulse was there but thready. Her skin felt cold. "Come on," he muttered. "Come on, stay with me." He didn't touch the pregnancy test lying 3 feet away. But he saw it. He definitely saw it. News traveled fast in corporate buildings. By the time the paramedics arrived, building security had been notified. By the time Clara was loaded onto a stretcher, HR had been notified. And by the time the ambulance pulled away with lights flashing, someone had called the top floor. Damian Mercer received the news while reviewing acquisition documents in his corner office. His assistant, Jeffrey, knocked twice and entered without waiting. "Sir, there's been an incident." Damian didn't look up. "What kind of incident?" "Medical emergency. 14th floor, accounting department. Female employee collapsed. Paramedics just transported her to St. Catherine's. Has her family been contacted? We're working on it. There's a complication. That made Damien look up. Jeffrey was 60 years old and unflappable. Complications didn't rattle him. What complication? Jeffrey set a plastic bag on the desk. Inside was a purse, a wallet, and a pregnancy test. The paramedics collected her belongings. Building security photographed everything as protocol requires. The employee is Clara Hayes, age 30, been with the company for 4 years. Single. Listed emergency contact is a sister, Emma Hayes, currently a patient at Riverside Medical undergoing treatment for kidney failure. Damien stared at the bag, at the test visible through the clear plastic. Why are you telling me this? Because she collapsed on company time on company property, sir. And because she's listed as having no spouse, no partner, and her emergency contact is incapacitated. Someone needs to make decisions if she can't. HR wants authorization to, I'll go. Jeffrey blinked. Sir? To the hospital. I'll go. Damien was already standing, already reaching for his jacket. Which hospital? St. Catherine's, but sir, you don't need to personally clear my evening. Push tomorrow's 8 a.m. to 9:30. And Jeffrey? Damien paused at the door. This stays quiet. Her medical information doesn't leave this room. Of course, sir. Damien had built Mercer Global from the ground up after his father's death. He'd survived hostile takeovers, market crashes, and a personal tragedy that should have destroyed him. He knew how to control narratives, how to manage risk, how to protect what mattered. But as he rode the elevator down to the parking garage, he couldn't quite articulate why he felt responsible for a woman he'd never met. Maybe it was the pregnancy test. Maybe it was the fact that she'd listed a dying sister as her only emergency contact. Or maybe it was because he understood, better than most, what it meant to hold everything together alone until your body simply gave out. Clara woke up to beeping machines and the smell of antiseptic. Her first thought was Emma. Her second thought was work. She tried to sit up. A hand gently pressed her shoulder back down. Easy, you're at St. Catherine's. You collapsed. Claire's vision focused slowly. The man standing beside her hospital bed was tall, dark-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her car. His eyes were gray and tired and looking at her with something that might have been concern. I don't... Her voice came out scratchy. Who are you? Damien Mercer. I own the company you work for. Clara's heart rate monitor picked up speed. The CEO. The actual CEO was in her hospital room. Oh, God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I'll pay for the ambulance. I'll work extra hours. Please don't fire me. I need this job. I need it. Stop. His voice was firm but not unkind. You're not being fired. No one's asking you to pay for anything. Clara's breath hitched. Tears were suddenly burning behind her eyes, and she hated it, hated being weak, hated that this stranger was seeing her like this. When's the last time you ate? The question caught her off guard. Yesterday. Lunch, I think. You think? I had coffee this morning. Damien's jaw tightened. Coffee isn't food. I know that, Clara shot back, sharper than she intended. I know that. I was running late, and I had to get Emma to her appointment before work, and then there wasn't time. She stopped. She was babbling to her boss's boss's boss. Damien pulled a chair closer and sat down. The movement was deliberate, like he was trying not to spook a frightened animal. The doctor said you're malnourished, dehydrated. Your blood pressure is dangerously low. You've been working 70-hour weeks for the past 6 months, according to your time cards. Clara felt something cold settle in her stomach. You looked at my time cards? I looked at your file after you collapsed on my watch. He paused. I also know about your sister. Your emergency contact listing. The hospital called Riverside Medical. They explained her condition. Clara closed her eyes. This was it. This was where he'd tell her she was a liability, a distraction, a problem. Companies didn't keep employees who fell apart. She'd watched it happen to others. Now it was her turn. I need you to listen very carefully. Damien's voice was low and measured. Your sister needs dialysis 3 times a week. The treatments cost $8,000 a month, even with the insurance we provide. You're working yourself to death trying to cover the difference. Am I wrong? Claire's throat was too tight to answer. You haven't taken a sick day in 2 years. You eat 1 meal a day if you're lucky. You're 30 years old and you look... He stopped himself. You're hurting yourself to save her. She's all I have. The words broke out of Clara. She's 24. She's supposed to get married and have kids and have a life. And instead she's stuck in that place 3 times a week with needles and machines because her kidneys don't work, and she didn't ask for any of this. So yes, I'm working 70 hours a week. I'll work 90 if I have to, because she didn't get a choice, but I do. The silence that followed felt enormous. Then Damien said quietly, What if you didn't have to choose? Clara opened her eyes. What? My executive assistant quit 3 weeks ago, took a position in London. I haven't filled the role yet. He leaned forward slightly. It pays 3 times what you make now. Full benefits. Medical coverage that would cover your sister's treatments completely. You'd work directly with me, which means long hours, high pressure, and almost no privacy. But you'd also have the resources to actually take care of your sister without killing yourself in the process. Clara stared at him. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you a way out. I work in accounting. I reconcile expense reports. I don't know anything about being an executive assistant. You know how to work harder than anyone else in that building. You know how to show up even when everything hurts. You know how to manage impossible situations with limited resources. Damien's gray eyes held hers. Those are the skills that matter. The rest I can teach you. It was too much, too good. Nothing in Clara's life worked out this easily. Why? She whispered. Why would you do this for me? Damien was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood and walked to the window, his back to her. 3 years ago, my wife died giving birth to our son. The delivery went wrong. They saved him and lost her. His voice was flat, reciting facts. I had the best doctors money could buy. State-of-the-art hospital, every advantage, and I still couldn't protect her. I couldn't save her. Clara's chest ached. So when I see someone trying to save the person they love, trying so hard they're literally working themselves to death. He turned back to face her. I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to make something right. Maybe I just know what it costs to lose someone when you feel like you should have done more. Clara wanted to say something meaningful, something that matched the weight of what he'd just shared. Instead, she asked, What about the pregnancy test? Damien's expression didn't change. What about it? It was in my purse. Someone must have seen it when I collapsed. They did. It's why I'm here instead of HR. He crossed his arms. Whatever your situation is, that's your business. But if you take this job, you need to understand what you're walking into. I have a 4-year-old son who sometimes has to come to the office when childcare falls through. I leave at 5:30 sharp every Thursday for his speech therapy appointments. I don't do business dinners that run past 7 p.m. because that's his bedtime. My life is complicated. If you're about to have a child of your own, your life is about to get complicated too. I need to know if you can handle both. Clara's mind was racing. He wasn't asking if she was pregnant. He wasn't demanding explanations. He was asking if she could do the job. The father... She had to force the words out. He's not in the picture. It's just me. Then you'll understand exactly what you're signing up for. Clara looked down at her hands. They were shaking. When had they started shaking? I don't deserve this. Probably not, Damien said bluntly. Most people don't deserve the good things that happen to them. They just decide whether to take them or not. The hospital room felt very small suddenly. Clara could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. She thought about Emma sitting alone in that dialysis chair. She thought about the pregnancy test in her bathroom at home, the one she'd taken 3 times to be sure. She thought about the man who'd promised he loved her and then stopped answering his phone the day she told him. She thought about being 30 years old and tired down to her bones. When would I start? She heard herself ask. Monday, if you're medically cleared. And if I'm not? Then whenever you are. Damien moved toward the door, then paused. Clara, can I call you Clara? She nodded. This isn't charity. I need someone capable. Someone who won't quit when things get hard. If you take this job and you can't handle it, I'll fire you. This is a professional opportunity, not a handout. Understand? Yes. Good. He opened the door. Jeffrey, my actual assistant, will contact you tomorrow with details. Get some rest. Eat something that isn't coffee. And Clara? Yes? The father who left? Damien's voice was cold now. Businessman cold. He's an idiot. You'll be better off without him. Then he was gone. Clara lay back against the pillows and tried to process what had just happened. Her phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Where are you? You missed the appointment. Clara's stomach dropped. She'd been unconscious. Of course she'd missed it. She typed back, I'm so sorry. Something came up. Are you okay? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. I'm fine. But you promised. Clara closed her eyes. Even her eyelids hurt. I know. I'm sorry. I'll make it up to you. The dots didn't appear again. Damien Mercer drove home in silence, the city lights blurring past his windows. His penthouse was in the North District, all glass and steel and carefully chosen pieces that a decorator had insisted would soften the space. They hadn't. It still felt like a museum most days. He found his son in the living room with Lydia, the nanny who'd been with them since the beginning. The boy was sprawled on his stomach, toy cars lined up with mathematical precision across the carpet. Daddy! The shout came without the boy looking up. Hey, buddy. Damien loosened his tie and sat down on the floor beside him. What are we building? Traffic. There's an accident. His son crashed 2 cars together with sound effects. Looks serious. Very serious. This one, he held up a red sedan, needs an ambulance. Damien's chest tightened. Does it? Mm-hmm. But the ambulance is stuck behind the blue car, so we have to move it. Methodically, carefully, his son began rearranging the cars to create a path. Lydia caught Damien's eye and mouthed, Everything okay? He nodded. It was easier than explaining. Daddy, you're not playing. Sorry, buddy, long day. Mommy had long days. His son said it matter-of-factly, the way he said everything. No emotion, just information. Lydia said, That's right, Mommy worked very hard. But then she went away. Damien's throat closed. They'd had this conversation before. They'd have it 1,000 more times, probably. She didn't want to go away. Sometimes things happen that we can't control. Is she coming back? Nobody. We talked about this. She can't come back. His son nodded slowly, then went back to his cars. Okay, the ambulance is through now. The red car is saved. Damien watched his 4-year-old son orchestrate a rescue with plastic toys and felt something crack open in his chest. This boy who lined up cars instead of crashing them randomly, who asked the same questions over and over because repetition meant safety, who'd been born at the cost of his mother's life and didn't understand what that meant yet. Time for bath, sweetheart. Lydia stood. Say goodnight to Daddy. Good night, Daddy. Still not looking up. Good night, Oliver. After they left, Damien sat alone on the floor surrounded by toy cars and thought about a woman who'd worked 70 hours a week to save her sister, about how she'd begged not to lose her job before she'd even asked about her own health, about the fear in her eyes when she'd mentioned the pregnancy test. He thought about his wife, Isabel, who'd been so excited about the baby, who'd decorated the nursery in soft yellows and greens because they'd wanted to be surprised, who'd kissed him goodbye that morning 3 years ago and never came home. The doctors had explained it clinically. Amniotic fluid embolism. Rare. Unpredictable. Unsurvivable. He'd held Oliver for the first time in a hospital room that smelled like death, and he'd loved his son with everything he had, and he'd hated himself for the tiny, terrible part of him that wished the outcome had been different. He never told anyone that. Not the therapist, not his family, not Jeffrey, who knew everything else. But he thought about it sometimes in the dark. His phone buzzed. Jeffrey, Mrs. Hayes has been cleared for discharge tomorrow morning. I've arranged for a car to take her home and deliver a week's worth of meals. Contracts will be ready Monday. Damien typed back. Good. Make sure the meals include actual protein, and send flowers to Riverside Medical for the sister. Something cheerful. What should the card say? Damien thought about it. Hang in there. Things are looking up. He set the phone down and picked up one of Oliver's cars. The red sedan that needed saving. Claire was discharged at 10 a.m. The nurse who processed her paperwork seemed confused by the instructions. You have a car waiting downstairs and there's been a delivery to your home address, meals for the week? Is that right? I think so. Lucky you. The nurse handed her the discharge papers. Wish someone sent me free food. The car was a black sedan with a driver who held the door open and didn't ask questions. Clara sat in the back seat feeling like she'd stepped into someone else's life. Her apartment was in a building that had been charming in the listing and functional in reality. Third floor, no elevator, neighbors who yelled through the walls. She'd lived there for 6 years. The meals were waiting at her door in a refrigerated container. Clara hauled it inside and opened it to find 7 days of carefully labeled containers. Breakfast. Day 1. Egg scramble with vegetables. Lunch. Day 1. Grilled chicken with quinoa and roasted vegetables. Dinner. Day 1. Salmon with sweet potato and green beans. There was enough food for 2 people. Clara sat on her kitchen floor and cried. She cried because someone had noticed she was starving. She cried because her sister was still mad at her. She cried because there was a baby growing inside her that she hadn't planned and didn't know how to want yet. She cried because a stranger had offered her a way out, and she didn't trust it. She cried until she couldn't anymore, and then she ate the egg scramble cold from the container because she was too tired to heat it up. It was the best thing she'd tasted in months. Emma called at noon. You're alive. I'm alive. Clara curled up on her ancient couch. I'm sorry about yesterday. The hospital said you collapsed. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want you to worry. Clara, Emma's voice cracked. I'm on dialysis 3 times a week. You're literally working yourself to death to pay for it. When exactly am I supposed to not worry? I got a new job. Silence. What? A promotion, technically. Executive assistant to the CEO. It pays 3 times what I make now, and the insurance will cover your treatments completely. That's... Emma sounded stunned. That's amazing. How? Clara closed her eyes. I collapsed at work. He saw what was happening and offered me a way out. The CEO personally offered you a job because you passed out? It's complicated. Clara, what aren't you telling me? Everything. She wasn't telling her everything. Not about the baby. Not about Marcus finding the pregnancy test. Not about the way Damian Mercer had looked at her like he understood exactly what it felt like to be drowning. I'll explain later. I just wanted you to know things are going to get better. I don't want you to kill yourself for me. I'm not. I promise. This is good. This is actually good. She could hear Emma breathing on the other end. Okay, if you're sure. I'm sure. Mokti. After they hung up, Clara opened her laptop and Googled Damian Mercer. The first image was from 3 years ago, him leaving a hospital, a tiny bundle in his arms, his face absolutely shattered. The headline read, Mercer CEO's wife dies in childbirth. Company shares plummet amid tragedy. Clara scrolled through article after article. The business recovery. The charity work in his wife's name. The carefully controlled public appearances with his son. The rumors about why he never dated, never remarried, never seemed to move on. There was a quote from an interview 6 months ago. My son is my priority. Everything else is just work. Clara thought about the way he'd sat beside her hospital bed, the way he'd talked about his wife without flinching, the way he'd said, you'll understand exactly what you're signing up for. Like single parenthood was a battle they were both about to fight. She put her hand on her stomach. Nothing showed yet. She was maybe 8 weeks along. She had time to figure this out. But Monday was coming fast, and Clara Hayes, who'd never caught a break in her life, was about to walk into a world she didn't understand, working for a man who'd lost everything and somehow kept going. She ate the salmon dinner cold at 3 p.m., took a shower that actually had hot water for once, and fell asleep on her couch before the sun went down. Outside her window, the city hummed and buzzed and carried on without her. And somewhere across town, in a penthouse made of glass and grief, Damian Mercer read bedtime stories to a little boy who asked when Mommy was coming home and wondered what the hell he'd just set in motion. Monday morning arrived like a judgment. Clara stood outside Mercer Global Holdings at 7:45 a.m., staring up at the glass tower that stretched into the gray sky. She'd been inside this building 1,000 times, but always through the side entrance, always up the service elevator to the 14th floor where people like her belonged. The main lobby was different. Marble floors, chrome fixtures, a reception desk that looked like it cost more than her annual salary used to be. Past tense now, because as of today she was something else. She just wasn't sure what yet. Clara Hayes? A woman in her 50s approached, extending a hand. I'm Margaret, Mr. Mercer's senior administrative coordinator. You must be the new EA. Clara shook her hand, hoping her palm wasn't sweating. That's me. Jeffrey asked me to meet you. He's upstairs handling a crisis with Tokyo. Time zones are a nightmare this week. Come on, I'll show you up. They rode the elevator to the 32nd floor. Clara watched the numbers climb and tried to remember how to breathe normally. Nervous? Margaret asked. Terrified. Good. Means you're smart. Margaret smiled. Listen, I've worked here 15 years. I've seen 3 EAs come and go in that time. The job will eat you alive if you let it. Mr. Mercer doesn't mean to be difficult, but his standards are... She paused, searching for the word. Exacting. What happened to the last one? Catherine? Brilliant woman. Moved to London for a VP position at another firm. She lasted 2 years, which is actually impressive. Margaret lowered her voice as the elevator doors opened. The one before her made it 6 months before she had a nervous breakdown in the copy room. Clara's stomach lurched. That's encouraging. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to prepare you. Margaret led her down a hallway lined with contemporary art that Clara didn't recognize. Mr. Mercer is fair. He's generous with people who prove themselves, but he will push you harder than anyone ever has. If you can handle it, this job will change your life. If you can't, she shrugged, well, at least you'll have a good reference. They stopped at a set of double doors. Through the glass, Claire could see an enormous office, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. And there, standing behind a desk the size of her kitchen, was Damien Mercer. He was on the phone, his back to them, one hand pressed against the glass as he looked out at the skyline. Even from here, Clara could see the tension in his shoulders. That's your desk? Margaret pointed to a sleek workstation positioned just outside his office. You'll be his first point of contact for everything. Calls, meetings, correspondence, travel arrangements, crisis management, and there's always a crisis. Your computer login is active. Jeffrey left you a training manual that's roughly the size of a dictionary. Questions? Clara had about 1 million questions. Where's the bathroom? Margaret laughed. Down the hall, 3rd door on the left. You'll spend a lot of time there. It's the only place you can hide. Coffee station is in the break room, but honestly, get a good travel mug and make it at home. You won't have time to wait in line with the associates. She checked her watch. I need to run. But Clara? You wouldn't be here if he didn't think you could do this. Mr. Mercer doesn't make impulsive decisions. Whatever he saw in you, trust it. Then she was gone, and Clara was alone with her new desk and her new computer and the terrifying awareness that Damien Mercer was 15 feet away behind glass walls. She sat down. The chair was ergonomic and expensive and adjusted to her height perfectly. Someone had left a welcome packet, a company laptop, and a name placard that read Clara Hayes, executive assistant to the CEO. Clara touched the placard like it might disappear. The phone on her desk rang. She stared at it. It kept ringing. She picked up. Hello? Is this Clara? A crisp British accent. Yes? Jeffrey Mills, welcome aboard. Terribly sorry I couldn't meet you personally, dealing with a shipping delay in Singapore. Mr. Mercer's morning briefing file should be on your desktop in a folder marked Daily Brief. He'll want it printed, bound, and on his desk by 8:15. Today's schedule is synchronized to your calendar. His first meeting is at 9 with the acquisitions team. He takes his coffee black, no sugar, and he'll want a fresh cup before the meeting. The Keurig in his office is temperamental. If it makes a grinding noise, call facilities immediately. Questions? Clara's head was spinning. Where do I find the printer? Behind you, left corner. Binding machine is underneath. You've got 18 minutes. Good luck. The line went dead. Clara spun around, found the printer, opened her desktop, and started clicking. The daily brief was 47 pages long. Charts, graphs, financial projections, news summaries, competitor analysis. She hit print and listened to the machine whir to life. 17 minutes. While pages spooled out, she figured out the binding machine, which was less intuitive than it looked. She punched holes in the first 3 pages before realizing she'd loaded them wrong. Started over. 13 minutes. Coffee. She needed to make coffee. She opened the door to Damien's office as quietly as possible. He was still on the phone, still facing the window. Don't care what their timeline is, we need those numbers by Thursday, or we're walking. No, Jim, I'm not negotiating. Thursday. Clara tried to move invisibly to the Keurig. She found the pods in a drawer, some expensive Italian brand she'd never heard of. Put one in the machine. Pressed the button. The machine made a sound like a dying animal. Damien turned around. Their eyes met through his glass walls. Clara froze, her hand still on the Keurig. He held up one finger. Wait. And went back to his call. Jim, I'm going to have to call you back. Yes, Thursday. I know. Goodbye. He hung up and walked to his office door, opening it. You must be Clara. I'm so sorry. I was trying to make coffee and the machine, it's broken. Has been for a week. I keep meaning to replace it. He looked tired. Not just normal tired, the kind of tired that came from not sleeping well for years. How are you feeling after the hospital? I'm fine. Good. Ready to work. Your brief ready? Clara glanced at the printer, still going. Almost. 2 more pages. Good. Bring it in when it's done. And Clara? He paused. Welcome to chaos. He closed the door and went back to his desk. Clara finished the binding with shaking hands, delivered the brief at 8:14, and spent the next hour trying to figure out how to transfer calls, schedule conference rooms, and read Damien's handwriting on the margin notes he'd made. At 8:55, Jeffrey called again. Mr. Mercer's 9 o'clock is waiting in conference room A. He'll need the Jackson acquisition files. Should be in the cabinet behind your desk, red folder. Also, his son's school just called. Apparently Oliver is refusing to participate in music class, and they want to schedule a parent meeting. Clara blinked. What should I do? Log it in the family calendar, separate from his business calendar, very important, and call the school back to find a time that works with his Thursday speech therapy slot. He won't move that appointment for anything, so build around it. Okay, I can do that. Of course you can. Oh, and the Tokyo crisis is resolved, so I'll be in this afternoon to properly train you. Try not to burn the building down before then. Clara found the red folder, delivered it to conference room A, where 6 serious-looking executives were already seated, and returned to her desk to call Oliver's school. Riverside Montessori, how may I help you? Hi, this is Clara Hayes calling on behalf of Damien Mercer. I understand there was an incident this morning? Oh, yes. The woman's voice shifted to that careful tone people used when discussing difficult children. Oliver had another episode during music class. He doesn't like the instruments when they're too loud. We've discussed accommodations before, but Mrs. Patterson feels it's time for a more comprehensive conversation about his sensory needs. Clara wrote sensory needs in her notes. What times work for you? We have an opening Thursday at 4. Mr. Mercer has a standing appointment at 4 on Thursdays. What about Friday? Friday is our staff development day, Monday or Tuesday of next week. Clara checked the calendar. Monday was packed. Tuesday had a window. Tuesday at 3:30? That works. Should we expect Mrs. Mercer as well? Clara's pen stopped. Mrs. Mercer passed away. A terrible silence. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Our records must be outdated. I'll update them immediately. It's fine, Claire said, even though it wasn't fine at all. Tuesday at 3:30. I'll confirm with Mr. Mercer. She hung up and put her head in her hands. 1 hour into her new job, and she was already fielding questions about a dead woman. Coffee? Clara looked up. Damien was standing at her desk holding 2 paper cups from the cafe downstairs. The Keurig situation is untenable, he said. I sent someone to buy a new one, but it won't arrive until tomorrow. In the meantime, he set 1 cup in front of her. You look like you need it. Thank you. Clara wrapped her hands around the cup. Your son's school called. They want a meeting Tuesday at 3:30. Something about music class and sensory needs? Damien's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Did they ask about my wife? They asked if Mrs. Mercer would be attending. I told them she passed away. How'd they take it? Like they felt terrible for asking. They always do. Damien leaned against her desk. Oliver has some sensory processing challenges. Loud noises, certain textures. Unexpected changes, they're hard for him. The school is good about it, mostly, but they like to check in regularly to make sure we're all on the same page. Do you want me at the meeting? To take notes or… No, this one I handle alone. He straightened. But I appreciate you asking. How's your morning been otherwise? Chaotic. Jeffrey called twice, the printer jammed once. I may have hung up on someone from the Singapore office by accident. They'll call back if it's important. Damien sipped his coffee. The first week is drinking from a fire hose. You'll adjust. And if I don't? Then I wasted a perfectly good recruitment opportunity and we're both screwed. He said it without smiling, but Clara thought she detected the ghost of humor. My 9:30 is in 5 minutes. After that, I'm blocked until 11 for the coastal merger review. Don't interrupt me unless the building is literally on fire. What if it's metaphorically on fire? Then use your judgment. That's why you're here. He walked back into his office and closed the door. Clara sat at her desk, drinking expensive coffee and wondering what the hell she'd gotten herself into. At 11:03, a woman in her 40s stormed past Clara's desk and barged into Damien's office without knocking. We need to talk about the Peterson account. Damien looked up from his computer. Hello, Diane. I'm well, thanks for asking. Don't be cute. Peterson's threatening to pull their contract because of the audit findings. That's $18 million in annual revenue. I'm aware. Then you're aware we need to offer them concessions. No. Diane's face flushed. Damien, be reasonable. The audit found legitimate discrepancies. If we offer concessions, we're essentially admitting fault and opening ourselves to liability. Peterson can either accept our remediation plan or find another firm. He closed his laptop. We're not negotiating with clients who question our integrity. This is about pride. This is about standards. Damien stood. If we compromise here, every client with a complaint will expect the same treatment. The answer is no. Diane turned and stalked out, nearly colliding with Clara. Your boss is impossible, she snapped. So I'm learning, Clara said. After she left, Clara knocked softly on Damien's door. Should I be worried about that? Diane's been trying to override my decisions for 3 years. She'll file a complaint with the board will side with me, and she'll be irritated until the next crisis. He rubbed his eyes. Don't let her bully you. She tries. Noted. The rest of the morning blurred. Phone calls, emails, a catered lunch that Clara ate at her desk while proofreading a contract. At 2 p.m., Jeffrey finally arrived in person, a trim British man with wire-rimmed glasses and an air of unflappable competence. Right, he said, pulling up a chair. Let's properly train you before something explodes. They spent 3 hours going through systems, protocols, contact lists, and emergency procedures. Jeffrey had been Damien's assistant for 7 years before being promoted to senior operations, and he knew everything. The most important thing to understand, Jeffrey said, is that Mr. Mercer operates in 2 worlds, professional and personal. The professional world is what you see here, meetings, deals, decisions. The personal world is Oliver. Those worlds don't overlap often, but when they do, Oliver always comes first. Always. A client could be offering us $1 billion deal, and if Oliver's school calls with an emergency, Mr. Mercer walks out mid-meeting, non-negotiable. Clara thought about the way Damien had talked about his son. He really loves him. Oliver is everything to him. It's beautiful and also slightly terrifying to watch. Jeffrey pulled up a shared calendar. This is the family calendar. Red blocks are Oliver's schedule. School, therapy, activities. You'll notice Mr. Mercer has blocked time every morning from 6 to 8 a.m. and every evening from 5:30 to 8 p.m. That's Oliver time. No calls, no meetings, no exceptions unless the world is literally ending. What about when Oliver's at school? Then Mr. Mercer works like a machine. He packs more into 8 hours than most executives manage in 12. It's why he needs an EA who can keep up. Clara looked at the color-coded chaos of Damien's calendar. Did the last assistant manage? Catherine was exceptional, but she also didn't have children of her own, didn't have family obligations that competed with the job. Jeffrey looked at Clara carefully. Mr. Mercer mentioned your sister's situation, that you're supporting her medical care. He told you? He tells me everything. It's my job to know. Jeffrey's expression softened. What he's offering you is extraordinary. The salary, the benefits, the opportunity. But it comes with a cost. This job will consume your life if you let it. You'll need to set boundaries or you'll end up like, he stopped. Like the EA who had a breakdown in the copy room. Margaret told you about Rachel. Jeffrey sighed. Rachel was brilliant, but she couldn't say no. She worked through illness, through her father's funeral, through her own wedding anniversary. Mr. Mercer didn't ask her to. She just thought that's what the job required. When she finally broke, Mr. Mercer felt terrible. He paid for her therapy, wrote her a glowing reference, personally called in favors to get her a less demanding position elsewhere, but he couldn't undo the damage. Clara felt cold. Why are you telling me this? Because you have a sister who needs you, and in a few months, you'll have a child who needs you too. Jeffrey met her eyes. Mr. Mercer knows about the pregnancy test. He didn't tell me details, but I'm not an idiot. If you're going to survive this job, you need to learn something Rachel never did, how to protect your own life while managing his. Before Clara could respond, Damien's office door opened. Jeffrey, do you have the Frankfurt contracts? On your desk, left corner, blue folder. Thanks. Damien noticed them sitting together. Training going well? She's a quick study, Jeffrey said. Good. Damien checked his watch. I need to leave in 30 minutes for Oliver's pickup. Clara, tomorrow morning I'll need you here by 7 a.m. We have a board meeting at 8, and the prep work is extensive. Clara's heart sank. 7 a.m.? Problem? No, I'll be here. Emma's dialysis was at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Clara had promised to go with her this time. Damien studied her face. If you have a conflict, say so. It's fine. I'll figure it out. He didn't look convinced, but he nodded and went back to his office. Jeffrey waited until the door closed. What's the conflict? My sister has dialysis tomorrow morning. I told her I'd be there. Can someone else take her? There is no one else. Jeffrey was quiet for a moment. Then he stood and walked to Damien's office, knocked, and entered without waiting for a response. Clara couldn't hear the conversation, but she watched through the glass as Jeffrey spoke and Damien listened. Then Damien looked out at Clara. He opened the door. Jeffrey says, you have a family obligation tomorrow morning. Clara's face burned. I can reschedule. It's not... What time is your sister's appointment? 7. How long does it take? 4 hours usually. Damien thought for a moment. Board meeting starts at 8. I can do the initial prep tonight and brief you when you arrive. What time can you be here? 11? Maybe 10:30 if I leave her early. 10:30 works. The meeting will still be going. You can sit in for the second half, take notes, start learning how board meetings function. He paused. In the future, when you have scheduling conflicts, I need you to tell me immediately. I can't accommodate needs I don't know about. I didn't want to ask for special treatment on my first day. It's not special treatment, it's managing reality. Damien's voice was firm. You have a sister who's sick. You'll have a child soon. Those aren't inconveniences, Clara. They're your life. If this job doesn't fit into your life, then the job doesn't work. Understood? Clara nodded, not trusting her voice. Good. Now go home. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be brutal. Clara gathered her things, her mind still reeling. As she waited for the elevator, Jeffrey joined her. He's not what you expected, is he? No, Clara admitted. He's not what anyone expects. The elevator arrived. But he's fair. Remember that. As long as you're honest with him, he'll work with you. Clara rode down 32 floors and emerged into the late afternoon chaos of the city. Her phone buzzed. Emma, still on for tomorrow morning? Clara typed back. Yes, I'll be there at 6:45. Then she called her sister. You're actually coming? Emma sounded surprised. I promised, didn't I? You've promised before. The accusation stung because it was true. I know, but I'm coming this time. I'll bring coffee. The good coffee or the hospital coffee? The good coffee. I have standards now, apparently. Emma laughed, and the sound made Clara's chest loosen slightly. How was your first day? Overwhelming. Terrifying. I have no idea what I'm doing. So, normal? Sure. Let's call it normal. They talked for a few more minutes, carefully avoiding the topic of why Clara had collapsed, why she'd gotten this miraculous promotion, and what it might cost her in the long run. When Clara got home, she found another delivery waiting at her door. This one was a box containing a new laptop bag, noise-canceling headphones, and a note in Jeffrey's precise handwriting. Essential tools for survival. The headphones are for when you need to block out the world. Use them liberally. Clara set up her laptop, tried to review the files Jeffrey had sent, and fell asleep at her kitchen table at 8 p.m. with her head on the keyboard. She dreamed about drowning in paperwork while Damian Mercer watched from behind glass walls, unreachable. The next morning, Clara was at Riverside Medical at 6:45 with 2 large coffees and a bag of pastries she'd grabbed from a bakery that was actually open before dawn. Emma was already in the waiting room, looking small and tired in an oversized sweatshirt. "You came," she said. "I came." Clara handed her a coffee. "Vanilla latte, extra vanilla." "You remembered." "I'm your sister. Of course I remembered." They sat together in the plasticky chairs while Emma's name was called. The dialysis center was depressing in the way all medical facilities were depressing. Fluorescent lights, antiseptic smell, the persistent beep of machines keeping people alive. Emma settled into her chair, a nurse prepped her access site, and Clara watched the needle go in with the same nauseating fascination she'd felt 100 times before. "Tell me about the new job," Emma said once the machine was running. "Distract me." So Clara talked about the office, the chaos, the broken coffee machine, about Jeffrey and Margaret, and the terrifying realization that she was completely out of her depth. "And your boss?" Emma asked. "What's he like?" Clara thought about Damian standing in her hospital room, about the way he'd talked about his wife without flinching, about how he'd rearranged his morning to accommodate her sister's dialysis without making Clara feel like a burden. "Complicated," Clara said finally. "Hot?" Emma. "What? I'm stuck in a chair for 4 hours. Let me live vicariously." Clara rolled her eyes. "He's attractive, yes. He's also a widowed single father with a 4-year-old son and roughly zero interest in anything other than work and parenting. So you've thought about it." "I've thought about how to not get fired. That's what I've thought about." Emma grinned. "You're a terrible liar." They fell into comfortable silence. Clara answered emails on her phone, fielding questions from Jeffrey about the board meeting prep. Emma dozed off around hour 2, her hand slack in Clara's grip. At 10:15, Clara carefully extracted herself and kissed Emma's forehead. "Love you," she whispered. "Love you too," Emma mumbled, without opening her eyes. "Don't get fired." Clara made it to the office by 10:35, slightly breathless from speed walking 3 blocks from the parking garage. The 32nd floor was different on a board meeting day. There was a tension in the air, people moving with purpose. Clara could hear voices coming from the large conference room at the end of the hall. Jeffrey intercepted her. "You're late." By 5 minutes. On board meeting days, 5 minutes is an eternity. But he was smiling slightly. "Mr. Mercer briefed the strategic priorities without you. They're moving into financial review now. Grab a notebook and sit in the back. Don't speak unless spoken to. Your job is to observe and learn." Clara slipped into the conference room as quietly as possible. Damian was at the head of a massive table, surrounded by 12 board members, mostly older men, a few women, all of them looking like they could buy and sell small countries. "Third quarter projections are solid," Damian was saying. "We're tracking 8% growth year over year, and the coastal acquisition positions us for expansion into Asian markets." "What about the Peterson situation?" a silver-haired man asked. "Peterson is resolved. They've accepted our remediation timeline." Diane suggested we should have offered concessions. Diane's suggestion was noted and rejected. Damian's voice didn't change, but Clara felt the temperature in the room drop. "We don't compromise our integrity to retain clients. If the board disagrees with that philosophy, we should discuss it now." No one spoke. "Good. Moving on." Clara scribbled notes trying to keep up with the discussion. Market analysis, competitive positioning, risk assessment. It was like learning a new language. At 11:47, Damian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his entire demeanor shifted. "I need to take this. 5-minute recess." He stepped out of the room. Through the glass walls, Clara watched him answer, his expression immediately concerned. "What happened?" His voice carried slightly. "Okay, no, I'm coming now. Tell her I'm on my way." He hung up and stuck his head back into the conference room. "Family emergency. Jeffrey will finish the meeting." Then to Jeffrey, Oliver's school. They said he's having a meltdown. Go, Jeffrey said immediately. Damien was already moving. He grabbed his jacket, his keys, and headed for the elevator without looking back. The board members exchanged glances. One woman near the end of the table said quietly, "His son?" "Sensory overload, most likely," another replied. "Poor kid." Jeffrey smoothly took control of the meeting. "Right. Let's continue with the operational review." Clara barely heard the rest. She was thinking about a 4-year-old boy who'd been born at the cost of his mother's life, who struggled with loud noises and unexpected changes, whose father would walk out of a board meeting without hesitation because nothing, not money, not power, not corporate responsibility, mattered more than being there. The meeting concluded at 12:30. Clara helped Jeffrey collect materials and clean up the conference room. "Does that happen often?" she asked. "Him leaving for Oliver?" "Often enough that the board expects it. They're not happy about it, but they tolerate it because Mr. Mercer delivers results." Jeffrey stacked folders. "Oliver has good days and bad days. Today's apparently a bad day. What happens now?" "Mr. Mercer will spend the afternoon with him. He'll work from home tonight after Oliver's in bed, probably until 2 or 3 a.m. to make up the lost time. Then he'll be back here tomorrow at 7 a.m., running on 4 hours of sleep like it's nothing." Jeffrey met her eyes. "This is what I meant about two worlds. They don't balance, they collide." Clara's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Damien, taking rest of day for Oliver. Forward anything urgent to my personal line. Everything else can wait until tomorrow." She stared at the message. He'd given her his personal number. She saved the contact and typed back, "Understood. Hope Oliver's okay." 3 dots appeared, then, "He will be. Thank you for asking." Clara worked through lunch processing the backlog of emails and scheduling requests that had piled up during the board meeting. At 3 p.m., her own phone rang. An unfamiliar number. "Hello? Is this Clara Hayes?" A woman's voice, professional but warm. "Yes? This is Dr. Reeves from Riverside Women's Health. We have you scheduled for a prenatal appointment next week, but I noticed you haven't completed your intake paperwork. Do you have a few minutes to go over some questions?" Clara's blood went cold. She'd made the appointment 2 weeks ago, back when she was still in accounting and no one paid attention to her. This isn't a good time. I understand. We can schedule a callback. When would work better?" "I'll call you back," Clara said quickly and hung up. Her hands were shaking. Jeffrey appeared at her desk. "Everything all right?" "Fine, just a personal call." He looked at her for a long moment, and Clara had the uncomfortable feeling he could see right through her. "Clara, I'm going to give you some unsolicited advice." "Okay?" "Whatever's happening in your personal life, and I'm not asking what it is, you need to handle it. Mr. Mercer is understanding about family obligations, but he needs you functional. If you're managing a crisis, manage it properly. Don't let it bleed into your work." He softened slightly. "Take it from someone who learned that lesson the hard way." "I will, I am." "Good." He turned to leave, then paused. "And Clara, the company health insurance is excellent. Use it." After he left, Clara sat very still at her desk. She was 12 weeks pregnant. She'd have to tell people eventually. She'd have to tell Emma. She'd have to figure out childcare and parental leave and how to raise a baby alone while working the most demanding job of her life. But not today. Today she just had to survive until 5:30. At 5:25, her computer dinged. An email from Damien sent from his phone. "Tomorrow 7 a.m. sharp. Preparing investor presentation. We'll need you all day. Clear your calendar." Clara looked at her calendar. Emma had a follow-up appointment with her nephrologist at 2 p.m. tomorrow. She called Emma. "Hey, what's up?" "Your appointment tomorrow, can you reschedule?" Silence on the other end. "Clara, I've had this appointment for 6 weeks. I know, I'm sorry, you just have to work." "It's not like that." "Then what's it like?" Emma's voice was tight. "Because from here, it looks like your new fancy job is already more important than me." "That's not fair." "Isn't it? You missed my dialysis last week. Now you're bailing on my doctor's appointment. What's next?" "Emma, forget it. I'll go alone. I'm used to it." She hung up. Clara sat at her desk, staring at her phone, feeling like the worst person in the world. At 5:32, she packed up her things and rode the elevator down in silence. The city was alive with rush hour chaos, horns honking, people shouting, the smell of street food mixing with car exhaust. Clara walked through it all feeling numb. Her phone buzzed, a text from Damien. "Oliver's stable. Sorry for the disruption today." Clara texted back, "Don't apologize, family comes first." The response came immediately. "It does. Remember that." She stared at those 3 words for a long time. Then she called Emma back. "I'm coming to your appointment tomorrow," Clara said when her sister answered. "I'll tell my boss I have a conflict. He'll understand." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. You're right. I've been putting work first, and that's not okay. You're my family, Em. You'll always be my family." Emma was quiet for a moment. "What if he fires you?" "Then I'll figure something else out, but I'm not missing your appointment." "Okay," Emma said softly. "Okay. Thank you." After they hung up, Clara drafted an email to Damien. "I have a family medical appointment tomorrow at 2 p.m. I'll be there in the morning, but I'll need to leave by 1:30. I apologize for the short notice." She stared at the draft for 5 full minutes before hitting send. The response came 20 minutes later. "Understood. We'll work around it. See you at 7. Clara went home, heated up one of the prepared meals, and sat alone in her apartment trying to figure out how to juggle a life that suddenly felt too big for one person. At 9 p.m., she pulled out her laptop and started researching parental leave policies, childcare costs, and single-parent support groups. At 11 p.m., she gave up and went to bed. And somewhere across the city, in a penthouse filled with toy cars and nightlights, Damien Mercer sat on the floor beside his son's bed, watching Oliver sleep and wondering how long he could keep all the pieces of his own life from falling apart. The weeks that followed developed a rhythm that Clara didn't quite trust. She'd arrive at 7, sometimes earlier, and find Damien already at his desk with coffee going cold and spreadsheets glowing on 3 different monitors. They'd work in tandem, her fielding the endless stream of demands from the outside world, him making decisions that moved millions of dollars with a few keystrokes and a signature. She learned his patterns, how he rubbed his left temple when a migraine was starting, how his tone shifted from businesslike to genuinely angry, a subtle thing most people missed. But Clara noticed everything now, how he never ate lunch unless she physically put food in front of him, and even then it was 50-50. She learned about Oliver, too, in fragments. The boy appeared in the office twice when childcare fell through, quietly setting up elaborate car tracks in the corner of Damien's office while his father took calls. Oliver didn't speak much. He'd look at Clara with serious dark eyes that were identical to his father's and then go back to his cars, lining them up by color, by size, by some organizational system only he understood. "He's particular," Damien said once, watching his son arrange vehicles in a perfect grid. "The therapist says it's how he processes the world. Everything has to have order." "Sounds like someone else I know," Clara replied without thinking. Damien had almost smiled. Almost. By mid-November, Clara felt like she'd been doing this job for years instead of weeks. Her body had adjusted to the pace, mostly. The nausea had subsided, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion that coffee couldn't touch. She'd started wearing looser shirts. Nobody had noticed yet, or if they had, they were polite enough not to mention it. Emma's nephrologist had delivered cautiously optimistic news. The dialysis was working. Her numbers were stable. They were adding her to the transplant list, though the wait could be years. "Years I've got now," Emma had said, squeezing Clara's hand in the doctor's office. "Because of you. Because of this job." Clara had smiled and nodded and tried not to think about what she'd sacrificed to get here. On a Wednesday that felt like any other Wednesday, Jeffrey appeared at Clara's desk with an expression she'd learned to dread. "Mr. Mercer needs to see you. Conference room, not his office." "What did I do?" "Nothing catastrophic. Just go." Clara found Damien standing at the windows of the small conference room, his back to her. The city sprawled below, gray and cold under November clouds. "Close the door," he said without turning around. She did. Her heart was hammering. "There's an event in 2 weeks," Damien said. "The Isabel Mercer Memorial Gala. It's held annually to fund medical research and family support programs. My late wife's parents organize it." Clara waited. This felt like it was going somewhere she didn't want to go. "I haven't attended in 2 years. I send a representative. I write a check. But I don't go. He finally turned to face her. This year they're asking me to speak. They want to announce a major initiative expansion, and they want it to come from me. Are you going to do it? I don't have much choice. Isabel's mother called me personally. She's 76 years old, and she's never asked me for anything since the funeral. So yes, I'm going. He paused. I need you there. As your assistant? As my buffer. These events are full of people who knew Isabel, who want to talk about Isabel, who look at me like I'm some tragic figure they need to comfort. I can deliver a speech. I can shake hands and smile for photographs. But I need someone there who understands that this is work, not therapy. Someone who can pull me out of conversations before they get too personal. Clara understood what he wasn't saying. He needed someone who wouldn't expect him to grieve publicly, who wouldn't push him to process emotions he'd locked away. Okay, she said. I'll be there. It's black tie. The company will cover the cost of appropriate attire. Jeffrey has a list of approved boutiques. You have approved boutiques for employee formal wear? We have protocols for everything, Clara. You should know that by now. She did know. In the past 6 weeks, she'd learned there were protocols for office temperature disputes, protocols for client gift giving, protocols for how to address board members versus investors versus international partners. Mercer Global ran on systems and structure, and Damien was the architect of all of it. What about Oliver? Clara asked. Something flickered across Damien's face. He'll stay home with Lydia. These events run late, and he doesn't do well with crowds. Does he ask about his mother? At events like this? He doesn't remember her. He was 3 days old when she died. Damien's voice was carefully neutral. Sometimes I think that's easier. Sometimes I think it's worse. Clara didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing. The gala is November 22nd, Damien continued. Saturday evening. Car will pick you up at 6. I'll be ready. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. Clara. Yes? Thank you for not making this harder than it has to be. She looked back at him, standing alone in that conference room, backlit by gray sky and looking more tired than any 32-year-old should look. You're welcome, she said quietly. The next 2 weeks were brutal. In addition to regular work, Clara coordinated with the gala organizers, reviewed Damien's speech draft approximately 700 times, and fielded increasingly frantic calls from Isabel's mother, who wanted everything to be perfect in her daughter's memory. She was so full of light, Mrs. Richardson said during one particularly long conversation. Everyone loved her, and Damien, oh, he was so happy when they were expecting. I've never seen him like that before or since. Clara made sympathetic noises and took notes and tried very hard not to think about her own pregnancy, now 16 weeks along and starting to show enough that she'd had to buy new pants. She hadn't told anyone. Not Emma, not her doctor beyond that initial appointment she'd rescheduled twice. Not Damien. Every day she meant to. Every day something came up and she pushed it back another day. Jeffrey had stopped asking if she was feeling all right, which meant he definitely knew and was waiting for her to admit it. That was somehow worse than if he'd just confronted her directly. On the Thursday before the gala, Oliver's school called again. Clara had gotten used to these calls. Sometimes it was sensory overload. Sometimes another kid had disrupted Oliver's careful systems and he'd gotten upset. This time it was different. Oliver bit another student, the principal said. Clara's eyebrows shot up. He bit someone? During outdoor play. The other child is fine, just startled. But this is the second aggressive incident this month, and we need to discuss whether Riverside Montessori is the right environment for Oliver's needs. Clara put the call on hold and buzzed Damien's office. Oliver's school. It's urgent. Damien picked up immediately. What happened? He bit another kid. They want to talk about whether he should stay enrolled. The silence on the other end was deafening. Tell them I'll be there in 20 minutes. You have the coastal merger finalization in 10 minutes. Reschedule it. Damien, they flew in from Seattle specifically for... I said reschedule it. His voice was sharp. My son just assaulted another child. The merger can wait. He hung up. Clara spent the next frantic minutes rescheduling the coastal meeting, apologizing profusely to 3 very irritated executives, and watching Damien grab his coat and leave without a word to anyone. Jeffrey materialized beside her desk. Coastal's not happy. Coastal can get over it. That's Mr. Mercer's son talking, not his business sense. Maybe his business sense needs to take a back seat sometimes, Clara snapped. Jeffrey looked at her with something like approval. You're learning. Damien didn't come back to the office that day. Clara handled the fallout, rescheduled the merger meeting for Monday, and sent Damien a single text at 8 p.m. Everything handled. Take care of Oliver. He didn't respond. The next morning, Friday, Damien was back at his desk at 6:45 a.m. when Clara arrived. You're early, she said. Couldn't sleep. He looked it. There were dark circles under his eyes and his hair was messed up like he'd been running his hands through it repeatedly. How's Oliver? Suspended for 3 days. We're meeting with a behavioral specialist next week to discuss anger management strategies. Damien said it flatly, like he was reading a weather report. He's 4 years old and he needs anger management. That's where we are. Clara set a coffee on his desk. The good kind from the shop downstairs, not the office swill. He's processing trauma he can't articulate. Of course it's coming out sideways. You sound like his therapist. Your therapist sounds smart. Oliver's therapist. I don't have one. Maybe you should. Damien looked up at her. Are you psychoanalyzing me, Clara? I'm suggesting that a man who lost his wife 3 years ago and hasn't taken a single day off since might benefit from talking to someone professional. But what do I know? I just work here. She expected him to shut her down. Instead, he laughed. A short, surprised sound. You're getting bolder. You hired me to use my judgment. I'm using it. Fair enough. He opened his laptop. The gala's tomorrow. You pick up your dress? Clara had indeed picked up her dress from one of Jeffrey's approved boutiques, a simple black gown that had cost more than her first car and somehow managed to hide her growing belly while still looking elegant. Got it. What should I expect tomorrow night? A lot of wealthy people drinking expensive wine and congratulating themselves for caring about medical research. Isabel's parents giving speeches about their daughter. Me trying not to look like I'd rather be literally anywhere else. He pulled up a document. I finished the speech. Want to hear it? You're asking my opinion? You've been editing my emails for 6 weeks. Your instincts are good. He turned his monitor so she could read. The speech was brief, maybe 3 minutes. It acknowledged Isabel's legacy, thanked the donors, and announced the expansion of the Family Support Initiative, a program that would provide financial assistance and resources to caregivers managing chronic illness, particularly single parents and people supporting sick family members. Clara read it twice. Her throat felt tight. It's good, she managed. You're crying. I'm not. She touched her face. She was. Sorry, hormones. The word was out before she could stop it. Damien went very still. Hormones. Clara's heart stopped. I didn't mean, how far along are you? There was no point lying now. 16 weeks. 16 weeks. He sat back in his chair. You've been pregnant this entire time. Yes. Working 12-hour days, skipping meals, managing my chaos while dealing with morning sickness. It's not that bad. Don't. His voice was sharp. Don't minimize this. 16 weeks, Clara. You should have told me. I know. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you've been hiding a major medical condition while working a job that's already too demanding for someone without one. I was afraid you'd fire me. Fire you? Damien looked genuinely shocked. Why the hell would I fire you? Because I'm a liability. Because I'll need time off. Because single mothers with complicated lives are exactly the kind of employees companies avoid. I'm a single father with a complicated life. Should I fire myself? Clara opened her mouth, closed it. The company has parental leave, Damien said. 16 weeks paid. You'd qualify for all of it, and when you come back, your job is protected by law. Did you think I wouldn't honor that? I don't know what I thought. I couldn't risk losing this. Not when Emma's depending on me. Damien was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. I understand why you were scared, but Clara, I need you to trust me. If something's affecting your health or your ability to work, I need to know. Not so I can punish you, but so I can help. He paused. When's your next doctor's appointment? I haven't scheduled one. You're 16 weeks pregnant and you haven't seen a doctor? I had one appointment at 12 weeks. Everything was fine. One appointment. He pulled out his phone. What's your OB's name? Doctor. Reeves at Riverside Women's Health, but he was already dialing. Yes, this is Damian Mercer calling on behalf of my employee, Clara Hayes. She needs a prenatal appointment scheduled as soon as possible. Today, if you have availability. A pause. Yes, I'll hold. Damian, you can't just... He held up a finger. Yes, I'm here. 3 o'clock this afternoon? Perfect. She'll be there. He gave Clara's information, then hung up. You have an appointment at 3. Don't argue. I was going to say thank you. Oh. He looked slightly embarrassed. You're welcome. They sat in awkward silence for a moment. For what it's worth, Damian said, you're not a liability. You're one of the best hires I've ever made. And when you go on leave, I'll probably fall apart, but I'll manage. That's what Jeffrey's for. Clara felt tears threatening again. These hormones are ridiculous. Isabel cried at commercials when she was pregnant, cried at the news, cried because I brought home the wrong kind of pickles. His expression softened with memory. It's normal. Let yourself feel it. It was the most personal thing he'd ever shared with her. Clara didn't know what to do with it, except nod. The rest of the day passed in a blur. At 3, Clara left for her appointment. Dr. Reeves was a kind woman in her 50s who didn't comment on the long gap between visits. Everything looks good, she said, moving the ultrasound wand across Clara's belly. Strong heartbeat, good growth. You're measuring right on track. Can you tell what it is? Want to know? Clara hesitated. Knowing made it real. But it was already real, wasn't it? Yes. You're having a girl. A girl. Clara stared at the grainy image on the screen. Her daughter, moving and growing and completely dependent on Clara not screwing this up. I'm not ready, she whispered. Nobody is, Dr. Reeves said gently. But you'll figure it out. You've gotten this far, haven't you? Clara drove back to the office in a daze. A daughter. She was having a daughter. When she got back, Damian was in a meeting. She sat at her desk and put her hand on her stomach, feeling the slight curve that would keep growing until she couldn't hide it anymore. Her phone buzzed. Emma. Dinner tonight? My treat. Haven't seen you in forever. Clara started to type an excuse, then stopped. She'd been putting Emma off for weeks, buried in work and secrets. Yes. 7 p.m. Your favorite place. At 6:30, Damian emerged from his meeting looking exhausted. How'd it go? He asked. Good. Healthy. Everything's on track. Good. He paused. Clara, about tomorrow night. If at any point you're uncomfortable or you need to leave, just say the word. Don't push yourself for my sake. I'll be fine. I'm serious. Pregnant women and 4-hour galas don't mix. You start feeling tired or sick, we leave. No argument. Okay. He nodded and went back to his office. Clara met Emma at their favorite Vietnamese place, a hole in the wall that made pho so good it should have been illegal. Emma was already there, looking healthier than she had in months. You look good, Clara said, sliding into the booth. I feel good. The new medication is helping. Emma studied her sister. You look tired. I'm always tired. No, like really tired. Are you sleeping? Not enough. Work is crazy. Work is always crazy. That's not new. Emma narrowed her eyes. What's going on with you? And don't say nothing, because I know you better than that. Clara took a breath. It was time. I'm pregnant. Emma's chopsticks clattered onto the table. What? 16 weeks. It's a girl. I found out today. 16? Clara, why didn't you tell me? Because I was scared. Because everything's been so chaotic, and I didn't know how to handle it, and I just kept putting it off. Emma reached across the table and grabbed Clara's hands. Are you okay? Is the baby okay? We're both fine. I saw the doctor today. Everything's healthy. And the father? Gone. Has been since I told him. What an asshole. Yeah. Emma squeezed her hands tighter. You know I'm here for you, right? Whatever you need. I know. I'm supposed to be taking care of you. Not the other way around. Clara, you don't have to do everything alone. You've been killing yourself to save me, and I'm grateful. I am. But you can't keep sacrificing yourself. Emma's voice cracked. I want you to have a life too. I want you to be happy. Clara felt the tears coming and didn't fight them this time. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be a mother. Nobody does until they are. But you've basically been my mother since we were kids. You know more than you think. They talked through dinner, making plans. Emma insisted on helping with the baby when she came. Clara insisted Emma focus on her own health. They argued and laughed, and by the end of the meal, Clara felt lighter than she had in months. Saturday arrived too quickly. The car picked Clara up at 6, as promised. She wore the black gown and heels that hurt, but looked good, and the makeup she'd applied with a shaking hand. She looked elegant and professional, and nothing like the terrified woman underneath. Damien was already in the car, wearing a tuxedo that probably cost more than Clara's monthly rent. He looked good, too good. She tried not to notice. You look nice, he said. So do you. They drove in silence to the venue, a historic mansion on the edge of the city that had been converted into an event space. Cars lined the driveway, all expensive, all gleaming. Ready? Damien asked as they pulled up. No. Me neither, let's go. The gala was exactly what Damien had described. Wealthy people in expensive clothes, drinking expensive wine, and talking about charity like it was a hobby. A massive portrait of Isabel Mercer hung near the entrance. She'd been beautiful, blonde and laughing, caught mid-motion in the photograph like she couldn't sit still long enough for a proper picture. Clara watched Damien see the portrait, watched something shudder behind his eyes. I forgot they always display that one, he said quietly. We can leave. No, I committed to this. He straightened his shoulders. Let's get it over with. They entered together. Immediately, people swarmed. Isabel's parents, looking older than their years and genuinely happy to see Damien despite the circumstances. Board members who wanted to discuss business. Society women who air-kissed and asked about Oliver with that particular tone that suggested they thought he should be institutionalized. Clara stayed close, running interference like Damien had asked. When conversations got too personal, she'd interrupt with a polite excuse about the speech prep. When someone asked Damien how he was really doing, she'd steer him towards safer topics. 2 hours in, Damien was called to the stage. The room quieted. All eyes turned to him. He stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd, and for a terrible moment, Clara thought he might just walk off. But then he started speaking. Thank you all for being here tonight to honor Isabel's memory and continue the work she cared about so deeply. My wife believed that healthcare was a right, not a privilege. She believed that no one should have to choose between saving a life and financial ruin. She believed that caregivers, the people who sacrifice everything to care for others, deserve support, not just admiration. His voice was steady, professional, but Clara could see his hands gripping the podium. 3 years ago, I lost Isabel, but I gained something too. My son, Oliver. And through him, I've learned what it means to be a caregiver. What it costs. The sleepless nights, the constant worry, the feeling that you're never doing enough no matter how hard you try. Clara's throat tightened. That's why tonight, I'm proud to announce a major expansion of the Isabel Mercer Family Support Initiative. We're tripling our funding for families managing chronic illness. We're creating resource centers in 12 cities to provide counseling, financial planning, and respite care. We're partnering with hospitals to ensure no caregiver has to navigate the system alone. Applause started. This initiative exists because of people like my assistant, Clara Hayes. Damien looked directly at her in the crowd. People who work themselves to exhaustion saving the people they love, who skip meals so their sister can afford medicine, who collapse at their desks because they've forgotten what it means to take care of themselves. Clara felt every eye in the room turn to her. Her face burned. We see you. We're here for you. And in Isabel's name, we're going to make sure you're not alone anymore. The applause was thunderous. People stood. Damien left the stage and walked directly to Clara. I didn't ask if I could use your story, he said quietly. I'm sorry if that was... It was perfect, Clara interrupted. It was exactly right. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then Isabel's mother swept in, pulling Damien into a teary embrace, and the moment broke. The rest of the evening blurred. More conversations, more handshakes, more questions Clara deflected. By 10 p.m., she was exhausted, and her feet were killing her, and the baby was doing something that felt like gymnastics. I need air, she told Damien. Come on. He led her outside to a terrace overlooking the gardens. The night was cold and clear, stars visible despite the city lights. Clara leaned against the railing, breathing in the crisp air. "Thank you for tonight," Damien said. "I couldn't have done this without you." "Yes, you could have. Maybe, but it would have been worse." They stood in comfortable silence. Then Clara said, "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you still love her, Isabel?" Damien was quiet for so long Clara thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "I don't know. Is that terrible?" "No. I loved who we were together. I loved the future we were building, but that future died with her. And now when I try to remember her, all I can think about is the end, the hospital, the machines, the choice I didn't get to make." He gripped the railing. "Oliver asks about her sometimes. I tell him she loved him. I tell him she was brave and kind and wonderful. And I believe that. But I can't access the feeling anymore. It's like trying to remember a dream." "That sounds lonely." "It is." He looked at her. "But at least I'm not pretending otherwise." Clara understood what he meant, how exhausting it was to perform grief for other people's comfort, how much easier it was to just not. "I lied to you," she said suddenly. Damien raised an eyebrow. "About what?" "When I said the father wasn't in the picture." "That's true, but it's not the whole truth. The truth is I told him I was pregnant and he said he wasn't ready to be a father. Said it was my choice, but he couldn't be part of it. Then he blocked my number and moved to a different city." Clara. And the worst part? I was almost relieved, because I didn't love him. I thought I might, eventually, but I didn't. And now I'm having his baby and raising her alone, and I'm terrified I'm going to screw her up the way I've screwed up everything else. "You haven't screwed up anything." "I collapsed at work from malnutrition. I've been hiding a pregnancy for 4 months. I work 70 hours a week, and my sister thinks I'm neglecting her, and I can't remember the last time I felt like I was doing anything right." Damien turned to face her fully. "You want to know what I see when I look at you? I see someone who's holding together a life that should have broken her by now. I see someone who shows up every single day even when it hurts. I see someone who's going to be an incredible mother because she already knows how to love someone more than herself." Claire's eyes filled with tears. "That's the hormones talking. That's the truth talking." His voice was firm. "You're allowed to be scared, Clara, but you're not alone. Not anymore." Something shifted between them then, something Clara felt but couldn't name. The air felt charged, like right before a storm. She should step back. This was her boss. This was inappropriate. This was... "Clara," Damien's voice was rough. "I need to tell you something." Her heart was hammering. "Okay. This job, working with you, it's been..." He stopped, searching for words. "When Isabel died, I locked everything down. Emotions, connections, anything that could hurt. I focused on Oliver and work because those were safe, manageable. But you..." He broke off. "You make me feel things I thought I was done feeling. Damien, I know this is complicated. I know you're pregnant with someone else's child and you work for me and the timing is catastrophically bad. But I need you to know that what I feel for you isn't pity or professional respect. It's..." "Stop," Clara said. "Please stop." He stopped. Claire's mind was racing. This was happening too fast. Everything was happening too fast. "I can't do this right now," she said. "I'm 16 weeks pregnant, and my life is chaos, and you're my boss, and you're grieving, and this is too much." "I know. So why are you telling me?" "Because you deserve honesty, and because I'm tired of pretending I don't care about you." He took a breath. "But you're right. The timing is terrible, so I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know." Clara looked at him, really looked at him, at the grief and the hope and the fear all tangled together in his expression. "I need time," she said finally. "I need to figure out my own life before I can think about this. I understand. And this can't affect work. I need this job, Damien. I can't risk it." "It won't, I promise." He straightened, professional again. "I'll arrange for you to report to Jeffrey instead. Your role won't change, but the chain of command will. That way there's no conflict of interest." "You do that?" "I want you to feel safe. That matters more than my convenience." Clara didn't know what to say to that. They stood on the terrace, the party continuing inside without them. and Clara felt the weight of everything pressing down. The pregnancy, the job, Emma's illness, Damien's confession that changed nothing and everything simultaneously. "We should go back inside," she said finally. "Probably." Neither of them moved. Then Clara said quietly, "For what it's worth, I care about you too. I just don't know what to do about it." Damien smiled, a real smile, sad and genuine. "That makes two of us." They went back inside. The party continued. Clara made small talk and deflected questions and watched Damien work the room with practiced ease. At midnight, they finally left. In the car, Clara closed her eyes and put her hand on her belly, feeling her daughter move beneath her palm. "You okay?" Damien asked. "I don't know. Ask me tomorrow." He didn't press. When they reached Clara's apartment, Damien walked her to the door despite her protests. "Thank you," she said, "for tonight, for everything. Get some sleep. Take tomorrow off. You've earned it." "What about you?" "I'll probably work. It's what I do." He hesitated. "Clara, what I said tonight, I know. We'll figure it out. Just not right now." "Not right now," he agreed. He waited until she was safely inside before leaving. Clara climbed the 3 flights to her apartment, took off the expensive dress, and sat on her bathroom floor crying for reasons she couldn't fully articulate. Her phone buzzed. A text from Damien. "You're going to be a great mother. Don't forget that." Clara held the phone against her chest and let herself believe it, just for a moment. Outside, the city slept and dreamed, and somewhere in a penthouse across town, Damien Mercer sat in the dark beside his sleeping son and wondered what the hell he'd just set in motion by telling the truth. Clara didn't take Sunday off. She told herself it was because there was too much to do, emails piling up, the quarterly reports that needed review. But the truth was simpler and more pathetic. She didn't know how to sit still with her thoughts anymore. She showed up at the office at 9, surprised to find Damien's door already open and the lights on inside. He looked up when she entered. "I told you to take the day off." "You're here." "I live here half the time. Doesn't count." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Sit. We need to talk." Clara's stomach dropped. This was it. He was going to take back everything he'd said, tell her it was a mistake, restore professional distance. "I spoke with Jeffrey this morning," Damien said. "Starting tomorrow, you'll report directly to him for operational matters. I'll still work with you on projects, but the administrative hierarchy changes. HR is processing the paperwork." "That fast?" "I don't do anything slowly. You know that by now." He leaned back in his chair. "I also want you to start transitioning some of your responsibilities. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because in 4 months you're going to need to step back. I'd rather build redundancy now than scramble later." Clara felt something crack in her chest. "You're replacing me. I'm protecting you. And the baby. There's a difference." "Sounds the same from where I'm sitting." Damien's expression softened. "Clara, what I said last night, it wasn't a prelude to pushing you out. It was me being honest about something I should have kept to myself until we both had our lives sorted. But that doesn't change the fact that you're pregnant and this job is brutal and something has to give. I can handle it. I know you can. But should you have to?" He pulled out a folder. "I had Jeffrey put together some options. There's a project manager position opening up in the Family Support Initiative, the one I announced at the gala. It's senior level, full benefits, completely outside my direct supervision. The work would be meaningful and the hours are sane, 40 a week maximum." Clara stared at the folder. "You're demoting me. I'm offering you a life. There's a difference. Stop telling me what's good for me." "Someone has to, because you sure as hell won't do it yourself." Damien's voice rose slightly. "You worked yourself into the hospital once already. You hid a pregnancy for 4 months because you were terrified of losing this job. You're 17 weeks along and you still look exhausted every single day. So yes, I'm telling you what's good for you because apparently no one else will. You don't get to make this decision for me." "You're right, I don't. That's why it's an offer, not an order." He pushed the folder across the desk. "Read it, think about it. Talk to Emma, talk to your doctor. Hell, talk to Jeffrey. But consider that maybe, just maybe, there's more to life than proving you can survive this job." Clara grabbed the folder and stood. "Is that all?" "No." Damien stood too. I need you to understand something. What I feel for you. It's not going away just because the timing is terrible, but I'm not going to pursue it while you work for me and while you're dealing with everything else. That wouldn't be fair to either of us. So what? We just ignore it? We acknowledge it and we wait. Until you're ready? Until the situation is less complicated? Until we can figure out if this is real or just two broken people leaning on each other because it's easier than being alone? Clara wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong, but she couldn't because she didn't know if he was wrong. I need to go, she said. Clara, I'll read the folder. I'll think about it. But right now I just need to not be here. She left before he could respond. The following weeks were strange. Clara reported to Jeffrey, who was efficient and kind and didn't ask questions she didn't want to answer. She still worked with Damien on projects, but there was a careful distance between them now. Professional, polite, and absolutely hollow. She read the folder about the Family Support Initiative position. The job description was everything Damien had said. Meaningful work, reasonable hours, good pay. It was perfect for someone about to become a single mother. It felt like giving up. Emma noticed the change immediately. You're quieter, she said during one of their dinners. What's going on? Work stuff. It's complicated. Is it about your boss, the one you definitely don't have feelings for? Clara nearly choked on her foe. I never said I had feelings for him. You didn't have to. You talk about him constantly. Damien this, Damien that. Damien made me take the afternoon off for my doctor's appointment. Emma smirked. It's obvious. It doesn't matter if I have feelings. The situation is impossible. Why? Because he's your boss? Because you're pregnant? Because it's complicated? Emma shook her head. Clara, your whole life is complicated. That's never stopped you before. This is different. How? Because I could actually screw this up. I could lose the job, lose his respect, make everything awkward and terrible. And I can't afford that. Not with the baby coming. Emma reached across the table. Or you could take a chance and maybe, possibly, end up happy. Novel concept, I know. I don't even know if what I feel is real. Maybe I just latched onto him because he saved me and I'm confusing gratitude with something else. Do you think about him when you're not at work? Clara thought about the text messages she reread late at night, about how she'd catch herself wondering what Oliver was doing, if his therapy was going well, if Damien was eating actual meals or surviving on coffee and spite. Yes, she admitted quietly. Then it's not just gratitude. Emma squeezed her hand. But you're right about one thing. You need to figure yourself out first. The job, the baby, what you actually want from life that isn't just survival. Maybe taking that new position isn't giving up. Maybe it's giving yourself permission to breathe. Clara went home that night and pulled out the folder again. She read every page, made notes, ran the numbers. By the time she finished, it was past midnight and she'd made a decision. The next morning, she walked into Jeffrey's office. I want the Family Support Initiative position, she said without preamble. Jeffrey looked up from his computer. You're sure? No, but I think it's the right choice anyway. Mr. Mercer will be pleased. Don't tell him yet. I want to tell him myself. She found Damien in his office during his lunch hour, which meant he was working through lunch as usual. You need to eat, she said, setting a sandwich on his desk. He looked at it, then at her. Is this a bribe? It's basic human care. Accept it gracefully. She sat down. I want the family support position. I'll finish out the month here, train my replacement, and start the new job in January. Something flickered across Damien's face. Relief, maybe, or regret. You're sure this is what you want? I'm sure I can't keep doing this. The hours, the stress, the constant feeling that I'm one crisis away from falling apart. You were right. Something has to give, and it can't be the baby. Thank you for telling me directly. There's something else. Clara took a breath. When I transition out, when I'm not working for you anymore, I'd like to revisit the conversation we had. About feelings. About what this is between us. Damien went very still. You would. Not immediately, not until after the baby comes and I've had time to adjust. But eventually, if you're still interested. Clara, I'm going to be interested 5 years from now. That's not the question. What is the question? Whether you're ready for something real or whether you're just lonely. He said it gently. I've been lonely for 3 years. I know what it makes you do. I don't want us to start something because it's convenient and then wake up 6 months later realizing we made a mistake. So what do? We wait. We figure our lives out separately. And if in 6 months or a year we still feel the same way, then we try. It was the most rational, sensible plan Clara had ever heard. She hated it. Okay, she said. We wait. Okay. They looked at each other across the desk, and Clara thought about how easy it would be to just lean forward, to close the distance, to stop being rational for once in her life. Instead, she stood up. Eat the sandwich. I'll see you in the morning meeting. Clara. She turned back. For what it's worth, Damien's voice was rough. I think you're making the right choice, both about the job and about waiting. I know, she said. That's the worst part. December arrived with early snow and holiday chaos. Clara threw herself into the transition, training a woman named Patricia who was competent and organized and everything an executive assistant should be. It felt like watching someone else step into her life. Oliver's behavioral specialist recommended a new school, a smaller program designed for kids with sensory processing challenges. Damien agonized over the decision for days before finally enrolling him. Clara watched the whole process from her new professional distance and wanted desperately to help in ways that weren't her place anymore. The Family Support Initiative position officially started January 2nd. Clara would have 6 weeks to settle in before her maternity leave began in mid-February. It was tight, but manageable. Emma's transplant coordinator called with unexpected news. A potential donor match had fallen through for another patient, bumping Emma up the list. It could be months or years, but it was progress. Things are looking up, Emma said, laughing with relief. For both of us. Clara's belly had grown impossible to hide. By mid-December, she was visibly pregnant, wearing maternity clothes and fielding questions from co-workers who were either supportive or invasive depending on their personality. Diane from legal cornered her in the break room. Single mother, I heard. That's brave. I didn't really have a choice in the matter, Clara said dryly. Still, hard to manage a career with a baby and no help. Diane poured herself coffee. Though I suppose the new position is more appropriate for your situation. Clara bit back about 15 different responses and settled on, it's a better fit for what I need right now. Of course, I'm sure Mr. Mercer was very understanding about the whole thing. There was something in Diane's tone that made Clara look up sharply. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just that he's been very generous with you. The promotion, the new position, the schedule accommodations. Some people might think it's favoritism. Some people should mind their own business. Diane smiled thinly. Just friendly advice. Office politics can be tricky, especially for someone in your position. After she left, Clara sat in the break room trying to control her anger. She knew people were talking. She'd heard the whispers, seen the looks. Single and pregnant, working for a widowed single father who was young and rich and looked like he did. Of course, people were going to make assumptions. The fact that some of those assumptions weren't entirely wrong made it worse. She was still sitting there when Jeffrey found her. Diane's an instigator, he said without preamble. Always has been. Don't let her get to you. People think I'm sleeping with him, with Damien. People think lots of things. Doesn't make them true. But what if they think he gave me the new job because of whatever they think is happening? Then they're idiots who don't understand how Mr. Mercer operates. Jeffrey sat down across from her. He created that position because it needed to exist. He offered it to you because you're qualified and because you inspired it in the first place. Everything else is just noise. It doesn't feel like noise. I know, but Clara, you can't live your life worried about what people think. Trust me, I've worked here 15 years. The gossip never stops. You just learn to ignore it. Clara wanted to believe him, but as she walked back to her desk, she felt eyes following her, heard conversations quiet as she passed. That evening, she was packing up when Damien appeared at her desk. Got a minute? She followed him into his office. He closed the door. I heard about Diane, he said. News travels fast. It always does. He leaned against his desk. I want you to know that if anyone, and I mean anyone, makes you uncomfortable or suggests anything inappropriate about our working relationship, you report it immediately. That's harassment, and it won't be tolerated. I can handle office gossip. You shouldn't have to. Not about this. He paused. I'm serious, Clara. I will fire people over this if necessary. Please don't. That'll just make it worse. Then what do you want me to do? Nothing. Just let me handle it. I'm not fragile. I know you're not. But you also shouldn't have to defend yourself against baseless rumors while you're 7 months pregnant and trying to transition jobs. Clara felt her eyes sting. Damn hormones. Why do you care so much? You know why. We agreed to wait. We did. Doesn't change how I feel, just changes what I do about it. Damien ran a hand through his hair. Look, I'm not going to fire Diane for being a gossip, but I am going to make it very clear that there are professional boundaries that everyone in this company needs to respect, including her. Thank you. You don't have to thank me for basic decency. I do when it feels like basic decency is in short supply lately. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Damien said, Oliver asked about you yesterday. He did? Wanted to know why you don't come to the office anymore. I told him you got a new job helping families. He said that's good because families need help. Damien's expression softened. He likes you. He doesn't like many people. I like him too. He's a good kid. He is, even when he's biting other children and having meltdowns in music class. Damien smiled slightly. The new school starts in January. I'm terrified he'll hate it. He won't. Kids are resilient. So everyone keeps telling me. He looked at her carefully. How are you doing? Really? Tired, stressed, excited, and terrified about the baby, the usual. Have you thought about what happens after? Childcare, support system, all of that? I'm working on it. Emma's going to help when she can. There's a daycare near the new office that has infant care. I'll figure it out. And the father? Is he? He's not in the picture. Won't be in the picture. I've accepted that. Damien nodded slowly. For what it's worth, he's an idiot. But his loss is going to be your daughter's gain. Clara felt her throat tighten. You keep saying things like that. Because they're true. Or because you're a good person who sees the best in people even when they don't deserve it. I'm not that good. Ask anyone who's tried to negotiate a merger with me. But he was smiling now. Go home, Clara. Get some rest. Tomorrow's your last Monday as my EA. Let's make it count. No pressure there. When have I ever pressured you? Clara laughed despite herself. Every single day since I started. Fair point. She left his office feeling lighter somehow. The gossip still stung. The future was still uncertain, but Damien believed in her. That had to count for something. Her last week as Damien's executive assistant passed in a blur of final tasks and handoff meetings. Patricia shadowed her everywhere, taking notes, asking questions, gradually assuming control of the chaos Clara had managed for months. On Friday afternoon, the office threw her a small party. There was cake, cards, a gift basket full of baby supplies that someone from HR had organized. People were kind, even Diane, who gave her a wrapped present and a tight smile. Damien made a brief appearance, thanking Clara formally for her work and wishing her well in her new role. It was professional and appropriate and absolutely killed her. After everyone left, Clara packed up her desk. Personal items, photos of Emma, the name placard that had made this feel real. She was putting the last box together when Damien appeared. Everyone gone? Just me left. He walked to her desk, pulled an envelope from his jacket. I didn't want to give you this in front of everyone. Clara opened it. Inside was a card with a simple message in Damien's precise handwriting. Thank you for everything. You made the impossible manageable. You made me remember what it feels like to hope. Whatever happens next, know that you changed my life. Below that was a check. Clara looked at the amount and her eyes went wide. Damien, this is too much. It's your bonus. Prorated for the time you worked in this role. You earned every penny. This is more than a year's salary. Oh, like I said, you earned it. He paused. There's something else. He handed her another envelope. This one contained documents, legal documents. What is this? A trust fund. For your daughter. It's set up to cover her education, healthcare, anything she needs. You're the administrator, full control, no strings attached. Clara couldn't breathe. I can't accept this. Yes, you can, and you will. Because that little girl deserves every advantage in life, and her mother shouldn't have to work herself to death to provide them. Damien, before you argue, Understand that this has nothing to do with us, with whatever feelings might exist between us. This is about making sure a child is taken care of. If I'd known about any employee in your situation, I'd do the same thing." He met her eyes. "That's not entirely true, but it should be. I'm working on that." Clara looked at the documents, at the amount specified in the trust, and felt tears streaming down her face. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll use it. Say you'll let yourself have help for once." Damien stepped closer. "Clara, you've spent your whole life taking care of other people. Let someone take care of you for a change." She wanted to argue, wanted to refuse on principle, to prove she could do this alone. Instead, she said, "Thank you. It's everything. Thank you. You're welcome." They stood there in her empty workspace, surrounded by boxes and memories and all the things they weren't saying. "I should go," Clara said finally. "Emma's waiting." "Right, of course." Damien picked up her heaviest box. "I'll help you to your car." They rode the elevator down in silence, walked through the lobby where Clara had stood terrified on her first day, loaded boxes into her 10-year-old sedan that looked pathetic next to the luxury cars in the garage. "This is it," Clara said. "New chapter." "New chapter," Damien agreed. "You're going to do great things with the initiative. Those families are lucky to have you." "I hope so." "I know so." He hesitated, then, "Can I ask you something?" "Anything. In 6 months, when things are settled and you've had the baby and adjusted to the new job, will you still want to revisit this? Us?" Clara looked at him standing there in the concrete parking garage, looking vulnerable in a way she'd never seen before. "Yes," she said. "I think I will." "Good, because I'm not going anywhere." He stepped back, professional distance restored. "Take care of yourself, Clara, and congratulations on the new position." "Thank you for everything." She got in her car and drove away, watching him grow smaller in her rearview mirror. That weekend, Clara moved into a new apartment, a 2-bedroom in a better neighborhood that she could suddenly afford thanks to the bonus. Emma helped her unpack, exclaiming over the nursery furniture Clara had ordered, the changing table, the tiny clothes. "You're really doing this," Emma said. "You're going to be a mom." Terrifying, right? Terrifying and amazing. Emma hugged her carefully, mindful of the belly between them. "I'm so proud of you." "I haven't done anything yet." "You've done everything. You saved my life. You're building a life for your daughter. You escaped that nightmare job." "It wasn't a nightmare. It was eating you alive. Don't romanticize it now that you're out." Clara thought about 70-hour weeks and missed dialysis appointments and collapsing at her desk. Emma wasn't wrong. "The new job starts Tuesday," Clara said. "I'm nervous." "You'll be great. You always are." Tuesday came too fast. Clara arrived at the Family Support Initiative offices, a bright, open space in a different building entirely. Her new team was small but dedicated. Her new boss, Richard, was a 60-year-old former social worker who actually left at 5:30 every day. "Work-life balance isn't optional here," he told Clara on her first day. "We're helping families find theirs. We can't do that if we're burning ourselves out." It felt like landing on a different planet. The work was good, meaningful in ways that reconciling expense reports had never been. Clara developed resource guides, coordinated with hospitals, interviewed families about their needs. She came home tired but not destroyed. She saw Damien occasionally in passing, meetings about the initiative, funding discussions, brief moments in hallways. They were polite, professional. It hurt every single time. January became February. Clara's due date loomed. She worked up until the day her water broke in the middle of a team meeting. Emma drove her to the hospital, holding her hand through contractions and breathing exercises, and the increasingly terrifying realization that this was actually happening. "You're doing great," Emma kept saying. "I'm dying. I'm literally dying." "You're not dying. You're having a baby." "Same thing." It wasn't the same thing. 16 hours of labor later, Clara held her daughter, tiny and perfect, and screaming at the injustice of being born. "She's beautiful," Emma whispered. She was. Dark hair, dark eyes, lungs like an opera singer. "What are you going to name her?" Clara looked down at her daughter and said the name she'd chosen weeks ago. "Grace. Her name is Grace." The hospital room filled with flowers over the next few days. From her coworkers, from Richard, from the Family Support Initiative team. And a massive arrangement from Damien with a card that read, "Congratulations, she's lucky to have you." Clara held the card and cried, which the nurses attributed to hormones but was really just everything crashing down at once. Relief and fear and gratitude. And love for this tiny human she was responsible for keeping alive. Emma stayed with her the first week home, helping with feedings and diaper changes, and the terrifying middle-of-the-night moments when Clara was sure she was doing everything wrong. "You're not," Emma insisted. "Look at her. She's perfect." Grace was perfect. Also exhausting. Also the best thing Clara had ever done. Maternity leave stretched ahead. 16 weeks of learning to be a mother, of sleepless nights and tiny milestones. Clara had never been so tired or so happy in her life. In week 3, there was a knock on her door. Clara opened it to find Damien standing there with Oliver beside him, holding a wrapped present. "We're not staying," Damien said quickly. "I know you need rest, but Oliver wanted to bring the baby a gift, and I wanted to see if you were okay." "I'm okay, come in." Oliver walked straight to the bassinet where Grace was sleeping. He stared at her with serious eyes. "She's very small," he observed. "She is," Clara agreed. "Babies are small. Then they get bigger." He held out the present. "I brought her a car. Dad said she can't play with it yet, but she will someday." Clara unwrapped it to find a small red sedan, one of Oliver's cars from his collection. "This is very special," she said. "Are you sure you want to give it to her?" "She needs toys. I have lots." He went back to staring at Grace. "Does she cry a lot?" "Sometimes." "I cry sometimes too. Dad says that's okay." "Your dad's right." Oliver nodded, satisfied, and went back to examining Grace like she was a particularly interesting puzzle. Damien caught Clara's eye. "How are you really?" "Exhausted, terrified, happy." "Good. That sounds right." He paused. "If you need anything—" "I know. Thank you." "The trust fund is active. The account information is in the documents I gave you." "I remember." They stood in awkward silence while Oliver narrated Grace's features in a quiet monotone. "We should go," Damien said. "Let you rest." "Okay." "Oliver, say goodbye." "Goodbye, baby Grace. I'll see you when you're bigger and can play with cars." Oliver headed for the door without looking back. Damien lingered. "She's beautiful, Clara. You did good." "Thanks." He looked like he wanted to say more. Instead, he just nodded and followed his son out. After they left, Clara sat holding Grace and Oliver's red car and tried not to think about how much she'd wanted Damien to stay. The weeks passed in a blur of feedings and sleep deprivation, and tiny moments of joy. Emma visited constantly, falling completely in love with her niece. Clara's maternity leave flew by faster than she'd thought possible. And through it all, Damien checked in via text. Never intrusive, just brief messages asking how she was doing, if she needed anything, letting her know he was there if she wanted him. Clara never knew how to respond, so she kept it simple. Updates about Grace, thank yous for his concern, nothing that acknowledged the bigger questions hanging between them. By week 12, Clara was starting to feel almost human again. By week 14, she was actually sleeping in 3-hour stretches. By week 16, she was almost ready to think about going back to work. Her phone rang on a Saturday afternoon. Damien. "Hey," she answered. "Hey, bad time?" "Grace is actually napping. I have approximately 20 minutes of freedom. Then I'll be quick. I wanted to ask you something." "Okay." "It's been 4 months since you left my office. 4 months since we agreed to wait and figure our lives out separately." He paused. "Have you figured yours out?" Clara looked around her apartment, the bassinet, the toys, the chaos of new motherhood. "I don't think I'll ever have it completely figured out, but I'm getting there." "Good, because I'd like to take you to dinner, not as your former boss, not as some kind of professional courtesy, just as someone who cares about you and wants to spend time with you without office politics or pregnancy complications or timing disasters getting in the way." Clara's heart hammered. "Like a date." Exactly like a date. "I have a 4-month-old baby. I have a 4-year-old son. We'll figure out the logistics." "Damien, if you're not ready, say so. I'll wait. I'll wait another year if that's what you need. But Clara, I've been waiting 3 years to feel anything close to what I feel for you. I don't want to waste any more time if you feel the same way. Clara closed her eyes. This was it, the moment she'd been thinking about for months. Yes, she said. I'd like that. I'd like to have dinner with you. She could hear the smile in his voice. Yeah? Yeah, just, can we take it slow? I'm still figuring out how to be a mother and I don't want to mess this up. Slow is good. Slow is perfect. He paused. How about next Saturday? I'll arrange childcare for both of them. We'll go somewhere quiet where we can actually talk. Okay. Yes, Saturday works. After they hung up, Clara sat very still, processing what had just happened. She'd said yes to Damian Mercer, to possibility, to something that might actually make her happy instead of just surviving. Grace woke up crying, and Clara picked her up, holding her close. Your mom is going on a date, she whispered, which is terrifying, but maybe also okay. Grace made a noise that could have been agreement or gas. Clara decided it was agreement. Outside her window, the city stretched on forever, full of people and possibilities and futures that hadn't been written yet. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Clara felt like maybe, just maybe, hers was going to turn out all right. Saturday arrived with the kind of nervous energy Clara hadn't felt since high school. She changed outfits 3 times, cursed her postpartum body, and finally settled on a simple dress that Emma insisted made her look beautiful instead of exhausted. You're overthinking this, Emma said, bouncing Grace on her hip. It's just dinner. It's not just dinner, it's dinner with Damian, my former boss who I've had feelings for since approximately week 2 of working for him, and who happens to be a billionaire widower with a traumatized kid, and… Clara stopped, breathless. I'm going to screw this up. You're not going to screw this up. You're going to have a nice meal with a nice man who clearly adores you. Grace and I will be fine here. Won't we, sweet girl? Grace gurgled in response. The doorbell rang at exactly 7. Clara opened it to find Damian in dark jeans and a button-down that made him look less like a CEO and more like a regular person. It was unsettling. Hi, he said. Hi. They stared at each other for a beat too long. You look beautiful, Damian said finally. You look nervous. I am nervous. Haven't done this in about 5 years. That makes 2 of us. Clara grabbed her purse. Emma, we'll be back by… Take your time. We're good here. Go. Have fun. Remember what that feels like. The restaurant Damian chose was small and quiet, tucked into a neighborhood Clara had never been to. No cameras, no society people, no chance of running into anyone from Mercer Global. I asked Jeffrey for recommendations, Damian explained as they were seated. Specifically requested somewhere no one would recognize us. Worried about the gossip? Worried about you having to deal with the gossip. There's a difference. They ordered wine, just 1 glass for Clara since she was still nursing, and fell into the kind of awkward small talk that happened when 2 people knew too much about each other's lives but had never actually dated. How's Oliver adjusting to the new school? Clara asked. Better than I expected. He actually has a friend now. A girl named Maya, who also lines up her crayons by color. They don't really talk to each other. They just organize things side by side. His therapist says it's progress. That's great. Yeah, Damian smiled. He asks about Grace sometimes. Wants to know when she'll be big enough to play with cars. Probably another year at least. I told him that. He's already planning which cars he'll give her. He's very specific about it. Clara laughed. He's a good kid. He is, even when he's impossible. Damian paused. How are you doing? Really doing, not the polite answer. Clara considered lying, then decided against it. I'm tired all the time. Grace still wakes up every 3 hours. I love her more than I thought it was possible to love anything, but I also sometimes miss sleeping through the night and having thoughts that aren't about feeding schedules and diaper rashes. Is that terrible? That's honest. And no, it's not terrible. It's called being a parent. He leaned forward slightly. It gets easier. Not easy, but easier. Oliver didn't sleep through the night until he was 18 months old. I thought I was going to lose my mind. How did you manage it alone? Badly at first. I had Lydia for the practical stuff, but the emotional weight of it, that was all mine. Being responsible for keeping this tiny human alive when I could barely keep myself together. He shook his head. The first year was the hardest year of my life. Harder than losing Isabel, if I'm being honest. Because grief you can process, but a screaming infant who needs you constantly while you're trying to figure out how to function, that's a different kind of hell. Does it make me a bad mother that I'm relieved someone else understands that? It makes you human, and for the record, you're not a bad mother. You're exactly the kind of mother Grace needs. Their food arrived, and the conversation shifted to easier topics. Work, Emma's improving health, the Family Support Initiative's first major success story, a single father who'd gotten help managing his daughter's cancer treatment. That program exists because of you, Damien said. You know that, right? Your story, what you went through with Emma, that's what made me realize how badly it was needed. I was just trying to survive. Exactly. And nobody should have to just survive when they're already dealing with impossible circumstances. He met her eyes. You changed how I see the world, Clara. Made me remember that business isn't just about profit margins and market share. It's about people. Real people with real problems who need real solutions. Clara's throat felt tight. You would have figured that out eventually. Maybe. But you accelerated it. Gave me a reason to care about something other than Oliver and work. He reached across the table, then hesitated. Can I hold your hand? Or is that moving too fast? Clara put her hand in his. His palm was warm, slightly calloused from whatever rich people did that gave them calluses. This okay? He asked. This is okay. They sat like that while they finished dinner, hands linked across the table, talking about everything and nothing. It felt easy in a way Clara hadn't expected. No pressure, no performance, just two people who'd been through separate versions of hell trying to figure out if they could build something together. After dinner, Damien drove her home, but didn't immediately let her out of the car. I need to tell you something, he said. Clara's stomach dropped. That sounds ominous. It's not. I need you to understand where I'm at. With this. With us. He turned to face her. When Isabel died, I locked everything down. Told myself I was done with relationships. Done with risking that kind of pain again. Oliver was enough. Work was enough. I didn't need anything else. I understand that. But then you showed up in my hospital room terrified of losing your job, and something shifted. You were so fierce about protecting your sister, so determined to keep going even when you were falling apart. And I recognized that. The determination, the fear, the absolute refusal to give up. He paused. You reminded me what strength actually looks like. Not the corporate version, not the fake-it-till-you-make-it version. Real strength, the kind that shows up even when it hurts. Clara didn't know what to say to that. I'm not good at this, Damien continued. The romance thing, the dating thing. I'm probably going to screw it up in ways I can't predict, but I want to try. With you. If you're willing to be patient with me while I figure it out. I'm not good at it either. I got pregnant by a guy who disappeared the second things got real. My track record is not impressive. Then we'll be disasters together. Seems fair. Clara laughed despite the tears suddenly burning in her eyes. When did you get funny? I've always been funny. You were just too busy keeping me alive to notice. She leaned across the console and kissed him. It was brief, tentative, perfect. When they pulled apart, Damien was smiling. So we're doing this? We're doing this, slowly, with realistic expectations and full acknowledgement that we both have complicated lives and kids who need us. Slowly, realistic, got it. He kissed her again, longer this time. How slow are we talking? Slow enough that I don't completely panic. Fast enough that I don't lose my nerve. I can work with that. The next few months unfolded in a careful dance. Dates when they could manage them, which wasn't often with two kids and demanding jobs. Damien would come over after Grace was asleep and they'd talk on Clara's couch until midnight, learning each other in increments. Clara would meet him for lunch sometimes. Stolen hours where they could pretend they were normal people without the weight of everything else. Oliver and Grace became a strange kind of unit. Oliver would visit and narrate everything Grace did in his serious monotone. Baby Grace is holding her foot. Now she's putting it in her mouth. That's not very clean, but Dad says babies do that. He's weirdly good with her, Clara told Damien during one visit. He likes that she doesn't talk back. Most kids overwhelm him, but Grace just exists near him. It works. Emma watched the whole thing unfold with obvious satisfaction. I knew you two would figure it out. We haven't figured anything out. We're just seeing where this goes. Clara, he looks at you like you hung the moon, and you look at him like he's the first person who's ever actually seen you. That's not seeing where this goes. That's falling in love. Don't say that. Why not? You scared it'll jinx it? I'm scared it's too good to be true, that something's going to go wrong and I'll lose it all. Emma grabbed her hand. You can't live your life afraid of losing things. Sometimes you just have to trust that good things happen to you too. But trusting good things was hard when you'd spent your whole life braced for disaster. The breakthrough came in July, 6 months after their first date. Damien invited Clara and Grace to his place for the first time, a huge step given how private he was about his home. The penthouse was exactly what Clara expected: expensive, beautiful, sterile. Except for Oliver's room, which was chaos personified, cars everywhere, organized into elaborate systems only he understood. Sorry about the mess, Damien said. I've given up trying to make him put things away. It's not mess, it's a system. That's what his therapist says. They had dinner, takeout because neither of them could cook worth a damn, while Oliver showed Grace his car collection and Grace drooled enthusiastically on everything. After the kids were in bed, Clara found Damien standing at the windows overlooking the city. You okay? She asked. I was just thinking about the first time I brought someone here who wasn't staff or family. He glanced at her. Isabel and I bought this place right after we got married. She decorated it, picked every piece of furniture, every painting. And after she died, I couldn't change anything. It felt like erasing her. You don't have to change it. I know, but I think I want to. Not to erase her, but to make space for something new, for a future that includes more than just survival. He turned to face Clara fully. I want you to feel comfortable here, you and Grace. I want this to feel like somewhere you could belong, not just somewhere you're visiting. Clara's heart was hammering. Damien, what are you saying? I'm saying I love you. I'm saying I've been in love with you since you told me off for not eating lunch and looked at me like I was a regular person instead of a CEO who could fire you. I'm saying I want this, us to be real, not just dates and stolen moments, but an actual life together. I have a baby who isn't yours. I have a son who barely tolerates most people and thinks Grace is the most interesting thing he's encountered since he discovered cars. They're already a unit. We're just catching up to what they already know. This is fast. We've been dancing around each other for over a year. That's not fast, that's glacial. He stepped closer. But if you need more time, I'll wait. I'm good at waiting. Clara thought about all the reasons this could go wrong. The logistics, the complications, the very real possibility that she'd screw this up like she'd screwed up everything else. Then she thought about Grace growing up with a father figure who'd chosen to love her, about Oliver having a mother figure who understood what it meant to fight for family, about herself, finally letting someone else share the weight instead of carrying it all alone. I love you too, she said. I'm terrified and I have no idea how to do this, but I love you. Damien kissed her like he'd been waiting his whole life to hear those words. So where do we go from here? Clara asked when they came up for air. Wherever we want, together. No more doing this alone. The rest happened in pieces. Clara and Grace started spending weekends at Damien's place, then weekdays. Then it felt silly to maintain 2 apartments when they were basically living together anyway. Emma's transplant came through in September, a perfect match from a donor in Nevada. The surgery was successful, her recovery steady. She cried when Clara told her she was moving in with Damien. I'm not abandoning you, Clara said quickly. I know. I'm crying because I'm happy, you idiot. You deserve this. You've always deserved this. The Family Support Initiative expanded to 15 cities. Clara ran it with the same fierce determination she'd brought to everything else, but now with the resources and support to actually make a difference. The program helped thousands of families that first year alone. Oliver started kindergarten at his special school and thrived. He still had hard days, still struggled with changes and loud noises, but he had tools now. And he had Grace, who he'd appointed himself the protector of. Someone has to watch her, he explained seriously. She's very small and doesn't understand about cars yet. Grace learned to crawl, then walk, then say Ollie as her first word, which delighted Oliver so much he actually smiled, a rare event. Clara and Damien figured out the logistics of blended family life in fits and starts. There were arguments about discipline and schedules and whose approach to parenting was right. There were moments when the past threatened to drown them both. Isabel's memory, the father who'd abandoned Grace, the trauma neither of them had fully processed. But there were also mornings when Clara woke up to find Damien already up with Grace, feeding her breakfast and making Oliver's lunch simultaneously. There were evenings when all four of them piled on the couch, kids pressed between them, watching movies that Oliver narrated in real time. There were small moments that added up to a life. One evening in December, almost exactly 2 years after Clara had collapsed at her desk, Damien came home from work carrying a small box. "What's that?" Clara asked, immediately suspicious. "Open it." Inside was a key. Not just any key, an old-fashioned brass key that looked like it belonged to a fairy tale. "What's this for?" "Remember when I told you this place felt like a museum, that it was Isabel's space, not mine?" Damien sat beside her. "I've been working with a designer. Nothing dramatic, just changes. Small things that make it feel like ours instead of hers. And I wanted you to have this." "It's symbolic. I know it's cheesy, but it's perfect," Clara interrupted. "It's completely perfect." "There's something else." Damien looked nervous in a way she rarely saw. "I know we've only been officially together a year. I know this is fast by normal standards. But Clara, nothing about us has ever been normal. We started with you unconscious in a hospital and me making terrible decisions about employee boundaries. We've already done everything backwards. Where are you going with this?" He pulled out another box. Smaller. The kind that made Clara's breath catch. "I'm going somewhere terrifying. But I'm asking anyway." He opened the box to reveal a simple ring. Elegant, understated, perfect. "Marry me. Not because it makes sense or because it's the right time, but because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Because you and Grace are already family. Because I want to make this official in every possible way." Clara stared at the ring, her mind racing. This was insane. They'd barely been together a year. She was still figuring out how to be a mother. There were so many reasons to say no, to wait, to be sensible. "Yes," she heard herself say. "Yes? Yes, I'll marry you. Because you're right, nothing about us has been normal, and I'm tired of waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm tired of being afraid that good things don't happen to people like me. So yes, absolutely yes." Damien slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her hard enough to make her forget every reason this might be a bad idea. They told the kids the next morning over breakfast. Oliver processed it with his usual seriousness. "Married means you live together always," he said. "That's right," Damien confirmed. "We already live together always." "Yes, but now it's official." Oliver considered this. "Does Grace become my real sister?" Claire's throat tightened. "She's already your real sister. The wedding just makes it official on paper." "Okay, that's good. Someone needs to teach her about cars, and I'm the best choice." He went back to his cereal like they'd just discussed the weather. Grace, oblivious at 18 months old, just banged her spoon on the high chair tray and yelled, "Ollie!" repeatedly until he gave her attention. They got married 3 months later in a small ceremony at the same venue where the gala had been held. A deliberate choice, Damien explained, to reclaim a space that had once been only about grief. Emma was Clara's maid of honor, healthy and strong and crying through the entire ceremony. Jeffrey was Damien's best man, looking satisfied in a way that suggested he'd been planning this outcome from the beginning. Oliver was the ring bearer. He performed his duties with the utmost seriousness, walking down the aisle at exactly the pace he'd practiced, cards clutched in his free hand for emotional support. Grace was the flower girl, which mostly meant Emma carried her down the aisle, while she threw petals in completely random directions and laughed hysterically. And Clara, standing at the altar, watching her impossible family assemble, felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope, not the desperate kind that came from having no other choice, but the real kind, the kind that believed good things could last. "You ready?" Damien whispered when she reached him. "I've been ready since you showed up at my hospital bed and offered me a way out." That wasn't the romantic beginning. It was perfect. Everything about us has been perfect in the most backwards, chaotic way possible. The ceremony was brief. They'd both been through enough to know that the words mattered less than the commitment behind them. When the officiant pronounced them married, Oliver announced, "You can kiss now," before anyone else could, and the entire room laughed. The reception was small: family, close friends, key people from Mercer Global who'd supported them through everything. Isabel's parents were there, looking older but genuinely happy for Damien in a way that made Clara's eyes sting. "She would have liked you," Mrs. Richardson told Clara during dinner. "Isabel. She would have appreciated how fierce you are, how you don't let Damien hide behind work." "I appreciate that," Clara said carefully. "I know this can't be easy for you." "It's not, but it's right. Damien's been in stasis for 3 years. You brought him back to life. That's worth celebrating." The evening wound down with Oliver falling asleep in a chair, Grace passed out in Emma's arms, and Clara and Damien swaying on the dance floor to music neither of them was really hearing. "Mrs. Mercer," Damien said against her hair, "still sounds weird." "You'll get used to it." "Will I?" "Probably not, but that's okay too." They swayed in silence for a moment. Then Clara said, "I need to tell you something." "Should I be worried?" "I'm pregnant." Damien stopped moving. "What?" "About 8 weeks. I found out yesterday. Was going to tell you after the wedding, but..." She shrugged. Seemed relevant. "Clara." His voice was rough. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. Surprise?" He picked her up and spun her around, laughing in a way Clara had never heard before. Pure, unfiltered joy. "We're having a baby," he said when he set her down. "We're having a baby. Is that okay? I know we just got married and things are already complicated. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect." He kissed her. "Another baby. A little sibling for Oliver and Grace. Someone who'll grow up knowing both their parents wanted them from the start." Clara felt tears streaming down her face. Happy tears this time. Not stressed or scared or overwhelmed. Just happy. "I love you," she said. "I love you too. Both of you." He put his hand on her still flat stomach. "All of you." The months that followed were easier than Clara's first pregnancy in every way that mattered. She had support now, Damien taking the middle-of-the-night runs for pickles and ice cream, Emma helping with Grace when Clara was too tired to function, even Oliver being weirdly helpful in his own way. "The baby will need a car," he announced one day. "I'm making a list of acceptable options." The Family Support Initiative hired more staff, allowing Clara to scale back her hours as her pregnancy progressed. She worked from home most days, managing the program remotely while wrangling a toddler and dealing with morning sickness. Emma's transplant continued to hold. She was healthier than she'd been in years, dating someone she'd met at a transplant support group, building her own life now that she wasn't constantly in medical crisis. "I'm proud of you," she told Clara one afternoon while they watched Grace and Oliver play. "You built this. A family, a career, a life. You did it." "We did it. I couldn't have survived without you." "You would have. You're the strongest person I know." Emma paused. "But I'm glad you didn't have to." In May, Clara gave birth to a son they named James, after no one in particular, just because they liked the name. He came into the world screaming just like Grace had, but this time Clara wasn't alone. Damien was there, holding her hand, crying when their son was placed in her arms. "He's perfect," Damien whispered. "He's going to have Oliver's eyes. Poor kid." They brought James home to a house full of people who loved him. Oliver was fascinated, carefully touching the baby's tiny hands and explaining to Grace that she needed to be gentle. "Babies are fragile," he said seriously. "We have to protect them." Grace, now 2 years old and fully committed to chaos, nodded solemnly and then immediately tried to put a toy car in James's bassinet so he won't be lonely. That night, after the kids were finally all asleep, Clara found Damien on the terrace overlooking the city. He was holding the same brass key he'd given her over a year ago. "What are you doing with that?" she asked. "Just thinking about how much has changed. This time 3 years ago, I was barely surviving, just going through the motions, trying to keep Oliver alive and the company running. I didn't think I'd ever feel anything again. And now? Now I feel everything. It's terrifying and wonderful, and I wouldn't change it for anything." He pulled her close. "You saved me, you know. Not just from the loneliness, but from the numbness. You made me remember what it felt like to be alive. You saved me too, from killing myself trying to be everything for everyone. You taught me it's okay to ask for help. We saved each other then. Good deal. They stood together watching the city lights, and Clara thought about the path that had brought them here. The collapse at her desk that had felt like the end of everything. The hospital room where Damien had offered her a lifeline. The months of dancing around feelings neither of them knew how to handle. The gala where everything had finally broken open. All the small moments that had added up to this. A family, a life, a future that looked nothing like what she'd planned, but everything like what she'd needed. What are you thinking? Damien asked. That I'm happy. Genuinely, completely happy. And I don't remember the last time I felt that. Get used to it. I'm planning on keeping you this happy for the next 50 years minimum. That's a long commitment. I'm good at commitments. Haven't you noticed? Clara laughed and kissed him under the stars, and somewhere inside the house all three of their children slept peacefully, dreaming whatever children dreamed about. The years that followed were far from perfect. There were still hard days, still fights about money and parenting and whose turn it was to get up with a crying baby at 3 a.m. Oliver's challenges didn't disappear. He still had meltdowns, still struggled in ways that broke Damien's heart. Grace turned out to be fearless to the point of terrifying, constantly finding new ways to give Clara heart attacks. James was colicky and stubborn and absolutely refused to sleep through the night until he was almost 2. But there were also birthday parties where all the kids played together. There were family dinners that ended in food fights and laughter. There were quiet Sunday mornings where everyone piled into the big bed and just existed together. There were moments when Clara would look around at her chaotic, imperfect life and feel overwhelmed by gratitude. For Emma's health, for the work that gave her purpose, for the kids who drove her crazy and filled her heart simultaneously, for Damien, who'd seen her at her absolute lowest and decided she was worth fighting for anyway. 5 years after their wedding, the Family Support Initiative won a national award for impact. Clara accepted it on behalf of her team, giving a speech about how everyone deserves support, how no one should have to choose between saving a life and surviving themselves. Damien was in the audience with all 3 kids, Oliver now 9 and doing well in his specialized school, Grace 5 and already reading at a 3rd grade level, James 3 and obsessed with anything his big brother liked. After the ceremony, they all went out for ice cream. James got it all over his face. Grace tried to trade flavors with everyone. Oliver explained in great detail why chocolate was the superior choice based on a statistical analysis he'd apparently conducted. And Clara, watching her ridiculous family be ridiculous together, thought about the woman she'd been 6 years ago. Starving, exhausted, convinced she'd never deserve good things. That woman would never have believed this was possible, this noise, this chaos, this overwhelming amount of love. What? Damien asked, catching her staring. Nothing. Just happy. Still? Still, always. He leaned over and kissed her, and all 3 kids made disgusted noises, and Emma, who'd joined them for the celebration with her fiancé, laughed so hard she nearly choked on her ice cream. And that was it. That was the life Clara had built from the wreckage of collapsing at her desk. Not perfect, not easy, but real. Messy and loud and filled with people who loved each other despite and because of all their broken pieces. That night, after the kids were finally in bed and the house was quiet, Clara stood in the nursery that was now James's room and remembered the terror she'd felt when she found out she was pregnant with Grace. How alone she'd been. How convinced she'd fail. Damien found her there. You okay? Just thinking about how far we've come. From that hospital room to this. No regrets? Not a single one. She turned to face him. You? Only that I didn't meet you sooner. Could have saved us both a lot of pain. Or we needed the pain to appreciate this, to know how good we have it. Maybe. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin on her shoulder. Either way, I'm keeping you. You and all 3 kids and your sister and this beautiful, chaotic mess we've built together. Good, because I'm not going anywhere. They stood together in the quiet house, listening to their children breathe in the other rooms, and Clara finally let herself believe what she'd been too scared to accept for years. She deserved this. The love, the family, the happiness, all of it. She'd worked for it, fought for it, survived everything that tried to break her to get here. And now, Finally, she could rest in the knowledge that good things didn't always slip away. Sometimes they stayed, sometimes they grew. Sometimes they became a life worth living. Under the same stars that had witnessed her proposal, her wedding, her darkest moments, and her brightest triumphs, Clara Hayes Mercer closed her eyes and felt peace settle into her bones. She was home. Not in a place, but in a life. With a man who loved her, kids who needed her, work that fulfilled her, and a future that looked nothing like the one she'd imagined, but everything like the one she'd needed all along. And that, she thought as Damien led her back to their bedroom, was more than enough. It was everything.